Good morning. Welcome to the August 7th, 2026 State Building Code Council public hearing for building code adoption and amendment. Before we get started, I'll give you an overview of how the meeting will work. The State Building Code Council is holding a public hearing for proposed rulemaking to the 2024 code adoption cycle. This hearing is specific to changes to WAC 5111C, the Washington State Energy Code commercial provisions, and WAC 5111R.
Recording in progress.
5111R, Washington State Energy Code residential provisions. WAC is shorthand for the Washington Administrative Code, the legal authority where state rules are codified. The proposed changes are posted on the rulemaking page 2024 code adoption cycle of the SBCC website. The purpose of the rulemaking hearing and comment period is to provide the public with an opportunity to comment on the proposed changes to the WAC language. This is your opportunity to let the SBCC know your thoughts on the specific changes. You can do so by testifying and or submitting written comments. Please submit any written comments to sbcc@des.wa.gov. Registrants for today have been grouped according to the code that indicated for testimony. When we get to that part of the hearing, we will call your name and then allow you to unmute. If you're in person, please approach the top of our horseshoe here and take a seat. And then when you are ready, we'll begin our timers. Please remember to state your name for the record. In order to ensure that everyone has a chance to make comments in a timely manner, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I'll let you know when you have a minute remaining. Also, I'll let you know when your 3 minutes have passed and to finish up your comments. Remember, you can also submit your comments in writing. Just as a reminder, this hearing is for specific proposed rule changes. If you have other comments for issues that aren't specific to the proposed changes, please provide those to the staff separately. As we do with all hearings and meetings, the audio is recorded for the record. And I'll turn the meeting over now to our hearing officer, Todd Bayerther.
Hey, good morning. My name is Todd Bayerther. I'm the chair of the State Building Code Council. I will be the SBCC's designated hearing officer today and will be conducting this hearing. I now call to order this hearing regarding WAC 51-11C adoption and amendment of the 2024 Washington State Energy Code commercial provisions and WAC 5111R adoption and amendment of the 2024 Washington Energy Code residential provisions. I would like to advise everyone that this hearing is being recorded and the audio file will become part of the official rulemaking file. For the record, this hearing is being held on August 7th, 2026, beginning at 10 a.m. in person in Spokane and via Zoom. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comments on adoption and amendments to WAC 51-11C 2024 Washington State Energy Code Commercial and WAC 5111R 2024 Washington State Energy Code Residential. This hearing is being conducted in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, RCW 42.30, and the Administrative Procedures Act, RCW 34.05. Legal notice of this hearing was filed with the Washington State Code Revisor on June 30th, 2026. The Washington State Register number for WAC 51-11C is WSR 26-14-100. Washington Register number for WAC 51-11R is WSR 26-14-101. Notice of this hearing was also posted on the SBCC website at sbcc.wa.gov. The hearing is being held to consider testimony on the proposed rules. For the 2024 Washington State Energy Code Commercial, the Council received 63 proposals. The Technical Advisory Group recommended approval of 53 proposals as submitted or as modified. For the 2024 Washington State Energy Code Residential, the Council received 32 proposals. The Technical Advisory Group recommended approval of 25 proposals as submitted or as modified. The Council recommended filing these proposed rules to allow input through the public hearing process. Testimony. We will now hear oral testimony regarding the proposed changes. For the record, please identify yourself, and if you represent a group, please speak clearly so we can get a good recording of your testimony. In order to ensure that everyone has a chance to make comments in a timely manner, please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
All righty, we'll begin testimony now. I have first on our list in person, Representative Suzanne Schmidt.
Okay. For the record, I am Representative Suzanne Schmidt from the 4th Legislative District, and I am an ex officio member of the State Building Code Council. I am going to read part of my testimony, but I would like to start out by saying that, as everyone I'm sure is aware, we've had devastating fires in the Spokane area. And we are hearing that 900 structures, plus more than 700 homes, were completely destroyed. I had concerns about these building codes, residential and commercial, especially in the housing arena. I had concerns about them because of the affordability of building homes and multifamily structures prior to this hearing. But in light of the circumstances of the fires, my concerns are more of critical mass at this point. We may have 900 homes to build in the next few years, and that's what it will take. And it's not going to happen overnight. But I don't know that the public is aware of this. But if these codes are accepted and go forward, they will be the code that homeowners will have to rebuild to. And so if you built your home in 2015 and there were codes in place in 2015, that will no longer be what you will be building your home according to. You will build them to 2024. And then I know that the council is going to start immediately on updating codes for 2027. So I think this is a critical issue that we need to address. I am going to read a few things, particular concerns, but my overall concern is being able to rebuild those homes and permitting. And like I said, before I was concerned, now it's at critical mass. How are we going to get people back into their homes in a timely manner? So one of the things for the residential emergent energy code, I'd like to say that I have concerns. I will read this. Okay, I am concerned, however, that residential provisions would make homes more expensive, limit design choices, and penalize otherwise lawful and efficient equipment choices. These are things that I would like to see happen. Preserve a straightforward replacement path for air conditioning equipment and oppose changes that remove this path or make it difficult. Replacing an air conditioner should not automatically trigger a heat pump conversion or unrelated envelope duct electrical testing or documentation work. And then remember that the Spokane City Council just recently passed a cooling ordinance and is going to require landlords to provide cooling structures. And so I'm afraid that this may trigger. So if people are buying temporary air conditioning for units, that if that unit goes out, that this could actually trigger a air conditioning system going from a window temporary unit to a new heat pump unit. And so that's something that I would like to consider as we move forward. Also, do not adopt electric readiness equipment for gas appliances because they add unnecessary compliance costs to homes and businesses that choose natural gas without lowering consumer energy bills. And again, we had several homes destroyed, but we also have several homes on the east side that depend on natural gas. And so would not like to see that option eliminated. I'm going to move on to the multi-family just because I know I'm a limited amount of time, but many commercial code provisions directly affect multi-family residential construction, especially R2 occupancies. Because apartment projects already face high land, labor, financing, permitting, construction costs, additional energy code costs can translate into higher rent, fewer projects, or reduced housing supply. And again, this is something that we really need to be careful when we are moving forward with energy codes. Reevaluate additional efficiency credit requirements for R2 occupancies using transparent modeling and the least burdensome pathway necessary to meet statutory targets without imposing unnecessary costs on housing. Avoid credit totals that exceed what is necessary to reach the statewide energy saving target, or that appear designed to favor one technology over the other. So these are things that we'd like to look at as we move forward with accepting this code in light of our health. And we do have a housing shortage throughout the state. So I know that I am really, my testimony is concentrating on Eastern Washington, but we do have a housing shortage throughout the state. And all of these, the codes and things that we are proposing are going to affect that housing building and development as we move forward throughout the state. So in conclusion, let me get this. So in conclusion, I think that the council should consider the impact of the wildfires in Spokane and Eastern Washington will have on preventing some members of the public from being able to participate in public hearings. So we do have, we might have a limited amount of people showing up, but also that we need to consider the impact of the codes on rebuilding and recovering from the tragedy that has occurred. Additionally, I would like to ask that we have at least a 1 year between final adoption and implementation, so that finalized code books, guidance, credit values, examples, training manuals are available for the new requirements that taking effect. Because as we already knew that this, that we would have a training period, but again, we're going to have massive permit requests, and we really need to give our people the opportunity, the building inspectors and permitting the opportunity to understand the codes, enforce them, and be trained in order to execute and implement. And with that, I thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and thankful that we do have a pretty good sized group out here today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I did have Senator Shelley Short on our list for testimony today, but they are not available. I'll mark them, and if they pop online, we'll give them a chance here. Next up for online testimony, I have Nancy Henderson. If you're in the room, could you use the raise hand function so I can see you? All righty, Nancy, you should be able to unmute, and when you're ready, I will start your timer.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Nancy Henderson. I am an architect and green building consultant with Archecology in Seattle. Before I begin my testimony, I want to acknowledge that this hearing is taking place in the shadow of devastation and loss from wildfires, some natural and some human caused. My heart goes out to people who've lost property and have been displaced. In light of the increasing challenges Washington faces from wildfires that grow more frequent, severe, and costly each year, I want to express my support for the 2024 Washington State Energy Code as a whole. I particularly want to address Section C411, which promotes on-site renewable energy and advances the state's long-term goals for energy resilience, emissions reduction, and climate preparedness. As Washington continues to experience the impacts of a changing climate, policies that encourage clean energy generation are an important part of reducing future environmental and economic risks. 12 organizations have signed a letter in support of recommended changes to Section C411. These recommendations are made to improve clarity and consistency, ensure that affordable housing also has the benefit of renewable energy required by Section C411, and improve constructability and code administration while preserving performance goals. I have worked on affordable housing projects in different capacities for nearly 30 years. I have served on nonprofit boards of affordable housing organizations for 20 years. I am keenly aware of the extraordinary difficulty getting affordable housing built. First costs are high. At the same time, the region has a desperate need. Many nonprofit housing developers are struggling as the challenges of building and operating housing converge. Renewable energy While it is a first cost burden, it is also a long-term benefit that is received by the developer and their partners. The long-term operational savings and the benefit of a resilient source of power should not only benefit market rate properties, but affordable properties as well. Nonprofit commercial projects are not exempt from renewable energy requirements, and neither should affordable housing be. Many affordable housing projects are at least partly funded by local affordable housing levies, the Department of Commerce, or by low-income housing tax credits, or by all three. These funding sources are all paid for by taxes of one form or another, and we should expect projects funded by our taxes to meet the same standards as privately funded projects. Affordable housing is a public investment, and we deserve that investment to be as energy efficient and resilient as possible. Thank you very much for your time.
Next up, I have in person Sean Lanchowski.
Sean Lanchowski with Bricklayers and Craft Workers Local 1. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Building Codes Council. My name is Sean Lanchowski. I represent about 950 members of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Local 1, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, of which about 100 of those members are located in Washington State. I'm extremely concerned about the council's apparent intent to eliminate single-wide CMU wall construction for all heated structures of the state of Washington. A single-wide masonry wall is a masonry wall that is structural and also is finished with no need to add any other finishes to it. Single-wide masonry has been the backbone of our industry in the Pacific Northwest. This type of construction allows us to build durable, attractive masonry walls that are cost-effective. These walls are durable, fireproof, flood-proof, rot-proof, pest-proof, and do not support mold and are completely recyclable. Actually, these walls sequester carbon from the atmosphere. They're resilient and sustainable and last for generations. Whole building energy studies show equivalency with the high U value conventional walls. A single white wall allows us to build a single white wall using masonry blocks whose cavities are then filled or poured and sprayed in insulation. The blocks are exposed on both sides and typically have decorative finish. A typical Costco would be a good example of their application in the commercial setting. These walls are deemed to be mass walls because of their weight, their mass, and they absorb heat in the winter and stay cooler in the summer. Because of this, mechanical heating and cooling can be delayed and frequently avoid peak electrical demand times. This saves energy beyond simple U values. Consider that a block wall never dies. That is, they never rot, decompose, or are completely reusable and recyclable, and do not require reconstruction due to a natural or man-made disasters. If discarded, they can be reused or recycled into pavement and other uses. Block buildings are frequently used as emergency or disaster shelters because of their qualities and may in fact be the only structure standing. If single-wide construction is no longer allowed in our state, then most masonry walls will require now a second wall to be built with either wood or steel studs, for example, alongside that block wall to provide more insulation. This mandate double wall construction will cost a lot more. And who wants to build a block wall, which requires yet another wall beside it? The result, masonry structures will be replaced by less durable structures. These structures with more frequent maintenance and replacement are not resilient or sustainable. In the state of Washington, because block manufacturing is family-owned and local, it avoids environmental and global trade issues while producing a resilient product. Let's not curtail or end single-wide masonry. Do not approve 24 GP 1-264R and 256. The masonry trade is a specialty craft and can't afford to lose any more of its industry. The industry has provided me with a stable living through the years. I was able to buy my first house, start a family, and raise 2 children, and it'll afford me to retire in the future. The same story is played out by a number of members that I represent. Thank you.
Next up in person, I have Lucas Witkowski.
I don't think he's going to make it.
Next up, I have online Reeves Clifford. All right, Reeves, when you're ready.
Great, thank you. Is there a way that we could split my testimony into two, since I'm talking about two different exemptions here? As we know in code, details matter.
And definitely allow you to speak separately on those two topics, yes.
Excellent, thank you so much. Let me pull up my comments. First off, I'd like to thank the chairman and council members for the opportunity to testify on the Commercial Energy Code CR 102 today. My name is Reeves Clifford. I'm co-founder and chief strategic officer for A&R Solar. I have over 20 years experience in Washington deploying solar and energy storage technologies to homeowners, businesses, tribes, low-income providers, and government agencies. I am testifying today on behalf of Shift Zero. I am here in opposition to the proposal 24 GP 187. We have submitted comments that have been submitted with suggested fixes. Specifically to exemption 3.4 and 411.1, the on-site renewable energy that we've already heard about this morning. This exemption deprives low-income residents of long-term energy or long-term utility savings by permitting developers to cut solar capacity by 25 to 50% on affordable housing. This exemption directly reduces the on-site energy generated where it's needed most. Low-income households bear the highest energy burden. Cutting required system size directly inflates their utility costs for decades to come. It creates an unfair standard that subsidizes developers at the expense of equity. Code exemptions shouldn't allow lower environmental or building performance standards for low-income housing. Equity in building codes means ensuring affordable houses achieve the same high efficiency, future-proof infrastructure as market rate developments, rather than institutionalizing a discounted building standard. Offsite transfers add unnecessary administrative burdens and delay occupancy. Exemption 3.4 requires verifying offsite construction, full operational status, and ownership transfers across separate properties before issuing a certificate of occupancy. This introduces significant regulatory complexity and administrative bottlenecks for code officials, risking project delays without delivering the full energy benefits on site. And those are my comments for exemption 3.4.
All right, when you're ready.
Yes, well, thank you again. I'm still working at A&R Solar. In addition to my day job at A&R, I was also appointed by Governor Inslee to co-chair the advisory board for the last state energy strategy. I'm still testifying on behalf of Shift Zero, and I'm still in opposition to the proposal. When it comes to exemption 3.5, the fee in lieu offsets delay real-world decarbonization and energy relief. Allowing developers to pay into a fund instead of building on-site solar turns a firm building requirement into financial opt-out. Even if the fund eventually builds solar elsewhere, it introduces a multi-year delay before actual panels generate power, leaving the immediate building and its residents without real-time energy savings. It also transfers the burden of construction and maintenance to public agencies. Exemption 3.5 shifts the responsibility of designing, contracting, and constructing renewable energy systems from private developers onto the Washington State Housing Finance Commission or local utilities. Public and nonprofit housing funds should not be converted into developer-financed solar installation programs, which creates administrative overhead and drains public resources. And finally, it robs the specific building of localized resilience and bill reductions. On-site solar directly reduces peak grid demand and lowers the building's operational costs day in and day out. When a project buys out the requirement through a cash contribution, the tenants and owners of that specific building lose out on lower utility bills and localized energy resilience, creating an unequal tier of building performance. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
Reeves, before you run off, I had you signed up for exception 2 as well.
I was exception 2. I don't have comments on exception 2.
Well, if you decide you want to submit something written, I'd be happy to accept it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll follow up on that.
Next up online, I have Amy Carpenter, and I see a hand up there. All right, Amy, when you're ready, you should be able to unmute.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair Byerther and council members, for the opportunity to testify on Commercial Energy Code CR 102. My name is Amy Carpenter. I'm the CEO and owner of Solterra Solar, where I employ 22 other Washingtonians and serve Western Washington in providing solar and storage installations. I have been in the industry since 2008, and I have navigated through many iterations of state incentives and modified code requirements. So I am experienced in how these laws and programs translate to real world operational execution. While I did register as an individual today, please let the record show that I am here commenting on behalf of Washington Solar Energy Industries Association, i.e. WASEIA. So Washington, sorry, I can spell it out for you. Yeah, you got it. Perfect. And specifically, I'm here in opposition to Proposal 24 GP 187, specifically Section 411.1. I have also submitted written comments in line with my testimony today. So I do want to warn you up front, for once, I'm going to be asking for less, not more, when it comes to Exception 2. Right now, the amount of on-site renewables required for a new building is set by a prescriptive formula based on floor area. In multifamily, solar or other on-site renewables is wired up to cover the house meter, which covers parking, lighting, elevators, irrigation, common area loads, etc. If the prescriptive floor area formula requires more than the house meter would ever use, the code is actually written as requiring developers to install on-site renewables that may produce no benefit. The surplus cannot be credited elsewhere under current rules. So the code is risking mandating the purchase of equipment that might not actually provide the intended value. Our recommended code amendment is to cap the required sizing for multifamily solar or other on-site renewables at the estimated annual usage of the house meter. We're not asking you to require less because we want to see less solar or other on-site renewables, but we're simply asking because a system producing power nobody can use is illogical and would prevent the dollars invested in solar from actually providing the maximum impact. Thank you. That's the end of that commentary. And then I can move on to my next testimony.
When you're ready.
Great. So once again, Amy Carpenter, Solterra Solar owner and CEO, representing WSEC, and here in opposition to Proposal 24 GP 187, specifically exceptions and 3.5. Great. I got a little feedback, but hopefully the audio is coming through.
That's loud and clear.
Every dollar this code is directing towards renewable energy either maximizes its impact or it does not. The two exceptions I'm speaking to today do not maximize impact as written. This new code proposal removes the requirement for affordable housing to install on-site renewables. The 2021 code had no such exemption. This is concerning given that affordable housing rents are capped by state and/or local rules, and rent could not be increased in the future to cover increased operating costs as electricity rates rise. Installing on-site renewables, specifically solar, at the time of construction is the most cost-effective option there will ever be for generating this power. This exemption does not protect affordable housing. It hands them a more expensive building to operate for the life of the building. Affordable housing development serves an important benefit within all of our communities, and we want to set these operators up for success. Meanwhile, this proposal also lets new construction and new additions satisfy their own on-site renewable obligations by either building a system on someone else's affordable housing project at a 50% reduction of the required size, or by simply writing a check into a fund. In doing so, the result is a less energy efficient building that costs more to operate year over year, whereas investing in solar upfront would protect against rising operational costs and result in a maximum efficient building. Both of these exceptions are in direct conflict with the goals set by the state to implement building code to maximize the use of solar and other on-site renewables. I ask you to think about how we evaluate a nonprofit. How much of your donated dollar actually reaches the cause? The exceptions as written add layers of administrative burden and other overhead expenses to where dollars utilized to install renewables from this fund will by far less impact by the time they are used because of both these increased overhead costs and because installing as a retro adds costs and challenges at that time. Allowing the code as currently written or as currently proposed will create what I'd like to deem a solar avoidance loophole. and it will result in fewer renewables for far more dollars spent for the same impact. I urge you to reject these exceptions as part of your final adopted 2024 code. Thank you.
All right, next up online, looking for Jamie McKay. If you could use the raise hand function. I'm not seeing your name on the list. Not seeing any new hands coming up. So next on our list online, looking for Kimberly Lowen. All right. Kimberly, you should be able to unmute, and when you're ready, I'll start the timer.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I certainly can.
Great. Good morning, and thank you, Chair and members of the Washington State Building Code Council, for the opportunity to comment on the Washington State Energy Code. For the record, I'm Kimberly Lowen, and I'm testifying on behalf of my organization Elevate in support of Proposal 209 of C-50344 of the Commercial Energy Code. Elevate is a nonprofit that works towards everyone having clean and affordable heat, cooling, water, and power in their homes and communities. We implement building retrofits in low-income multifamily rental housing to address health and safety concerns, preserve affordability, reduce energy burdens, and improve comfort and climate resilience. Proposal 209, which incentivizes replacing small rooftop air conditioners with heat pumps when they fail, is an essential step in Washington's path towards clean energy goals and climate resiliency. We know that heat pumps improve energy efficiency, take strain off the grid, as well as provide cooling, which has become essential with heat being the #1 cause of death, of climate-related deaths in Washington, and with the increasing air quality risk from wildfires. We need to be installing more heat pumps in multifamily buildings. We need to build capacity to do so. And incentivizing heat pump installation at the time of equipment failure is a common sense way to do just that. We need to be able to take advantage of the opportunity to replace systems at the time of failure with more efficient and resilient systems, especially during emergencies, to ensure people and the environment are better on the other side. As Proposal 209 only requires that heat pump be sized for the AC unit it is replacing, electrical upgrades won't be a barrier to installing the heat pump. The heat pump will reduce energy use and cost because they are much more efficient than the AC systems they are replacing. And now, with the heat pump being the primary heating source, the heat pump will reduce climate pollution and improve health conditions if the existing heating was fossil fuel powered, or reduce electricity use and strain on the grid if the existing system was electric resistance. Incentivizing heat pumps needs to be a part of Washington's code cycle updates, and doing it at the time of equipment failure is the most logical and cost-effective time. It ensures that the building owners and tenants are getting the best life out of their appliances while transitioning to clean energy. Proposal 209 ultimately keeps us on the path to comply with Washington's clean energy goals, and additionally, Proposals 267 and 270, which incentivize replacing HVAC and water heating equipment with heat pumps when they fail, support Washington's goals as well. I urge you to support all of these 3 proposals, 209, as well as 267 and 270. Thank you.
Next up in person, I have Steve Belzak.
Dustin, I have a separate request from Tom Young, is that coming? I'll be later. Fine, that's great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Todd and the rest of the Building Code Council. My name is Steve Belzak. I'm here representing the Northwest Concrete Masonry Association. We do represent 6 major regional producers and have about 40 associate member organizations aligned with us. Together, we oppose the elimination of the single wide masonry wall, Proposal 24 GP1-264R. I actually got to memorize that. This proposal is apparently an attempt to enhance energy savings, which is good. However, it is seriously misguided. Single wide masonry walls should be promoted and not eliminated. Proponent seeks to require adding an additional wall to a CMU wall already in place. And as been already mentioned, no one's going to do that. It's going to basically make single width walls too expensive and basically eliminate them from our environment, our marketplace. Things to consider here. It's the simplicity of a block wall. It's basically a single width wall filled with foam with durable finishes on either side. Very simple. Adding another interior wall makes that wall worse in terms of energy efficiency. We have data to back that up. It also increases CO emissions in the transportation, construction, and waste of adding yet another wall to an existing wall that's already sufficient. Durability is another thing to consider. It has been mentioned before, they don't rust, rot, or burn. Recent studies have shown that actually from the National Safety Foundation, the masonry wall of single width construction is a 150-year life cycle. A conventional structure has a 75-year life cycle. So what does that tell us? It tells us that a single width masonry wall is the equivalent of two buildings, a building and a rebuilding of a conventional wall.
Okay.
And if you think about that, I mean, that's a huge increase in terms of emissions and carbon production, trying to build the same building twice when a single width wall will satisfy for both for the 150 years. Other issues, that carbon sequestration, we have that in our written testimony. I urge anybody that's interested to look into that. It's a fascinating topic. That single width walls actually absorb masonry. They actually absorb CO from the atmosphere. Fire protection, I won't get into that. It's obvious. It's always on, and it's sustainable. What's the most sustainable building? Well, it's a building that the one that lasts is the most sustainable building. In this case, single width carbon fills that admirably. They meet both resiliency and sustainability goals. We don't need to be fighting over this. Our goals actually align here. So if we can offer an olive branch, I'd like to do so and say, let's look into this a little bit further and decide if these walls are actually good for the state of Washington, which I believe they are. Thank you.
I have you down for Tom Young now, if you'd like.
Oh, sure. And I'll do deference to Tom. This is going to be a little boring, so bear with me. This is regarding code change proposals 24 GP1-216R and 24 GP1-256. This is again from Tom Young, who is the past director of the Northwest Concrete Masonry Association. Regarding 24 GP1-216R, the proposed change, among other things, would delete table A103.3.7.1, listing default U factors for concrete and masonry walls. The proponent's goal appears to be removal of tables that are duplicative or confusing to the user. The origins of many tables are also questioned. This table was developed and included in the appendix based upon laboratory research and testing of concrete masonry materials available in the Northwest. Therefore, this table does provide unique and relevant information, which is one of the proponent's reasons for retention. I do agree that table CA 103.3.7.1 parent 2 should be deleted, as it lists information available in other published documents and causes confusion to code users. This also applies to the concrete masonry information listed in table CA 101.4. I therefore recommend this proposal be modified in one of two ways. Table A 103.3.7.1 parent 1 could be retained, or section 2402.1.4.1 can be further modified by adding a note as follows. Tables in NCMA Thermal Catalog of Masonry Assemblies. He wanted that footnote added. Very quickly, this is another code section 24 GP1-256. This one is simple. The proponent's proposal to change the Washington Code U and R value prescriptive paths to be consistent with 90 ASHRAE 90.1 was based upon anticipated or highly likely changes happening in ASHRAE. These changes did not happen. The U factor of 0.104 should remain. The climate zone 5 mass wall requirement did change from a U factor requirement of 0.09 to 0.089. Such an infinitesimal change isn't worth consideration. It's like an R value of like a half. It doesn't make any difference in how the wall would be constructed. It would have immeasurable impact on the energy use of a commercial building because it doesn't match up with the U factor of any common mass wall system. The designer might select. Additionally, the current Washington Energy Code is the same U/R prescriptive requirements for both climate zones, and that design strategy should be maintained. This proposed code change should be not denied. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on this, and thank you.
Next up in person, Gunnar Elofsson.
My name is Gunnar Elofsson. I'm president and owner of Great Northern Masonry. We're a union masonry contracting company based here in Spokane, Washington, founded in 1993. I'm here to ask for the denial of 24 GP1 264R and likewise 256. This would preserve the thermal mass wall exemption for integrally insulated single width CMU masonry walls. There's a reason this exemption was passed, and argue that the reasoning is just as sound today. Not as technical as Steve, but a 1,000-foot view of the benefits that these structures provide. These thermal mass walls absorb heat and cold, stores it, and then it slowly releases it. They provide superior fire resistance, wind resistance, are very resistant to potential flood damage, rot, pests, and mold. And additionally, our structural CMU walls have an extremely long lifespan, ranging from 100 to 150 years. Our walls are made from aggregate and material that's sourced locally in the region. And there's a reason large box stores, schools, warehouses, pump stations, they're all built from structural CMU. The masonry mass wall exemption that proposal 264 is attempting to revoke would mean that building these single width CMU structures, you can no longer erect them without having a secondary wall behind it for more insulation. This would significantly increase the cost of building with our structural CMU. For minor energy cost savings over the lifetime of the structure. Past councils determined that these marginal energy cost savings did not outweigh the benefits that our CMU walls provide, and I'd urge you to do the same. If proposal 264 passes, it also takes the decision-making out of the project owners and developers' hands. The decision makers behind these structures trust in their design teams, the architects and engineers, to provide them with the best possible structure within their budget. In many cases, the best possible structure is a single width structural CMU wall. If proposal 256 passes, it will only make building with single width structural CMU more cost prohibitive by requiring more continuous insulation in these mass walls. There's no clear evidence that requiring more insulation would make these structures more efficient. Once again, I urge you to reject proposals 24 GP1 264R and 256. Trust in the judgment of past councils and trust that the decision makers behind these structures can make their own informed decisions about what is best for the projects. Thank you for your time.
Next in person, we have Jacob Spilker.
Hello, my name is Jacob Spilker, and I'm here today to respectfully urge the council to reconsider proposals 264 and 256, which would effectively remove the existing mass wall exemption from Washington's Energy Code. My siblings and I own and operate a union masonry company here in Spokane that employs 30 to 40 workers, primarily union bricklayers and hod carriers. While our family business would be directly affected by this change, the broader impacts would extend well beyond our company to public agencies, school districts, private developers, taxpayers, and the construction industry throughout Washington. For decades, single width concrete masonry construction has provided economical, durable, and resilient building solutions for gymnasiums, schools, maintenance facilities, commercial buildings, and industrial structures throughout Washington. These buildings are selected not only because they're affordable, but because they routinely remain in service for 100 to 150 years with minimal maintenance requirements. The Mass Wall Energy Code allowance recognizes the unique performance characteristics of masonry construction including thermal mass, durability, security, impact resistance, long service life, and fire resistance. Removing this allowance would effectively discourage the use of masonry systems despite their proven performance and decades of successful application. The result will be higher construction costs, reduced competition among building systems, and fewer options for owners and designers. Public projects funded by taxpayers, including schools and community facilities, may be forced toward more expensive wall assemblies or systems with shorter service lives and higher maintenance costs over the life of the building. Our company has been constructing masonry buildings in Washington since 1954, and many of those structures continue to serve their communities today. Projects such as Ridgeline High School, Ferris High School, One Spokane Stadium, various Spokane County Fairgrounds buildings, and Spokane Veterans Memorial Arena are examples of projects that have utilized single-width masonry construction and show the value properly designed masonry construction provides.
30 seconds.
Properly insulated single-width masonry walls remain an efficient, durable, and cost-effective solution for many building types. Washington's Energy Code should encourage innovation and efficiency while preserving practical, proven construction methods that provide long-term value to building owners and taxpayers. I respectfully ask you reject proposals 264 and 256 and maintain a code framework that supports resilient buildings, competitive markets, and living wages for brick masons, hod carriers, and their families throughout our state. Thank you.
Next online, I'm looking for Jason Acosta. You should be able to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. When you're ready.
Thanks for the opportunity to testify. My name is Jason Acosta. I'm a PE. I'm a principal at RDH Building Science, an enclosure consulting firm. In my role, in addition to building enclosure engineering, I regularly consult on energy code compliance. I am testifying as an individual. Proposal 24 GP1-176 requires a reduced U value for 20% of glazing or a reduced U value for 35% of glazing if the building glazing ratio is above 30%. To achieve the reduced glazing U values, in column B of the proposed table, triple pane windows are required in most cases. I recommend that projects with total building vertical fenestration area below 30% of the total building above grade wall area be exempt from this high performance glazing requirement. This would encourage projects to use a reasonable window to wall ratio. Due to improvements in thermal envelopes required by the commercial code since 2007, heating energy use has been significantly reduced. Buildings with modest glazing ratios under 30% have significantly less heating energy use than they did 15 to 20 years ago. The cost and complexity associated with requiring 20% of windows to be triple pane is, in my opinion, not worth the incremental energy savings. Most low-income housing developments have modest glazing area ratios and are therefore inherently more efficient than highly glazed multifamily buildings. Including the proposed exception would reduce costs for multifamily building developments, leaving more to invest in other priorities. So again, I just encourage you to not require reduced glazing ratios or reduced U values for buildings with under a 30% glazing ratio. Thank you for your time.
Hey, Jason, this is Todd. Did you want to be listed as individual or as RDH?
Individual.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up online, I have Michael Zudwig. Michael, you should be able to unmute now.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you hear me? Sure. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chair and Council members, for the opportunity to testify on the Commercial Energy Code CR 102. My name is Mikhail Zudwig from MZ Solar Consulting and have been in the renewable energy industry for 25 years, engineering, developing, and implementing solar and battery projects in the commercial space in Washington State. Currently, I specialize in developing large solar and battery systems for tribal communities, rural communities, and vulnerable populations for buildings such as hospitals, schools, city halls, police stations, water treatment facilities, nonprofits, social services, and many more key infrastructure buildings. I'm testifying on behalf of Shift Zero, an organization that works to maximize energy efficiency in the built environment, where I am in opposition to Proposal 24GP187, with written comments have been submitted with suggested fixes. For Section C411.1, on-site renewable energy should be measured in energy, not power. Equal power does not mean equal renewable energy production, where energy is a means to measure greenhouse gas emission reduction, energy efficiency, and energy savings, while power is not. Energy is a measurable unit that is technology neutral. The intent of Section C411 is to reduce a building's net annual energy impact through renewable generation. Power is a characteristic of the equipment, but energy is the product the code is requiring. So expressing C411 requirement in energy makes C411 technology neutral, accounts for system performance, and creates a rational basis for equivalency with energy efficiency measures. Written comments have been submitted with suggestions, and I greatly encourage the council to adopt those amendments, and thank you for your consideration. Now I'm ready for my second testimony.
Gotcha. When you're ready.
All right. So my name is still Michiel Zuidweg, or Michiel Zudwig, with MZ Solar Consulting, and I am testifying on behalf of Shift Zero, an organization that works to maximize energy efficiency in the built environment, where I am in opposition to Proposal 24GP187, and written comments have been submitted with suggested edits. Section C411.1 Exemption 3 is supposed to determine the amount of roof area that is practically available for satisfying a mandatory solar install. Solar exposure and practical roof availability are two different questions. Consideration for available solar resource is project dependent on location in the state, such as Eastern Washington versus Western Washington, shading from obstructions like trees and buildings, and then tilt and azimuth. Having installed or been associated to the installation of more than 50 megawatts of solar, exclusion 4 is essential to ensure proper net roof area calculations for suitable PV resource locations. So written comments have been submitted with suggestions as well, and I encourage the council to adopt those amendments. Short and sweet, and I will move to my last testimonial. So again, my name is Michiel Zudwig with MZ Solar Consulting, and I am testifying on behalf of Shift Zero in opposition to Proposal 24GP187. So Section C411.1.2 needs the edit for on-site to ensure the maximum impact of the renewable energy system associated to the building that is being constructed, and maintains the basic intent of C411.1. The term on-site establishes a clear boundary of physical compliance and impact that specific building peak demand load on the utility. So winter peak demand is generally provided by unspecified power sources that have high greenhouse gas emissions, and the on-site battery system can directly impact the building's greenhouse gas emission reduction by peak shaving winter heating peak demand with that on-site energy storage system. Having a larger emissions impact than actually PV production on-site at those times. The measuring metric should be tied to energy generation, which has a direct correlation to greenhouse gas reduction and not power, as it is currently stated. As an anecdote, a few weeks ago, a wildfire came within 900 feet of my house in northeastern Washington. And so I just want to say this is not a structure, but this is, you know, a home where my family, kids, and we live and have built a life. And while that fire was encroaching towards my house, the fire eventually came really close to proximity of the town's substation, so the utility cut off the power to the town. And my on-site solar and batteries allowed me to run my well pumps and sprinklers to water around my property, providing a level of security as the firefighters fought the fire. The substation also continued to remain off for 24 hours, and the solar and batteries allowed me to provide water, clean air, air conditioning, and services to not only my family, but my neighbors around my house as well. So just want to state that written comments have been submitted for this as well, and I greatly encourage the council to adopt those amendments, and thank you very much for your time.
Next up in person, we have Steve Bosarge.
Good morning, Chair and members of the council. My name is Stephen Bosarge. Today I am testifying as a Spokane resident. I work as an organizer for Washington and Northern Idaho District Council of Laborers. My work experience is what brings me here. I want to raise two issues, one about specific material and one about the process that got us here. Proposal 24 GP 264R and 256 would effectively eliminate CMU's recognition as a mass wall assembly. CMU is one of the most affordable, durable, and fire-resistant ways to build a wall in this state. It is locally manufactured, it supports family wage jobs across Washington, and it has decades of real-world performance behind it. Removing its mass wall pathway does not make building more efficient. It will make them more expensive. And it threatens to cripple or shut down an entire manufacturing industry based on proposals that many in the industry consider overreaching and scientifically unsupported. If the council is going to reclassify a building material this significant, that decision deserves rigorous, transparent, technical justification. This CR 102 was filed while substantial portions of the code were still under active development. Since publication, the P&L Technical Work Group has continued adding significant technical provisions, things that are not editorial cleanups, but significant changes to compliance pathways, costs, and requirements. That means stakeholders, including the CMU industry, contractors, and building owners, have been asked to comment on the moving target. We cannot give this council informed testimony on language that doesn't exist when the comment period opened. 50 seconds. Washington Administrative Process Act exists precisely to prevent this. RCW 3405-320 and RCW 3405-325 require meaningful notice and genuine opportunity to comment on actual rules under consideration. When the rule keeps changing after notice, the opportunity becomes an illusion. And RCW 3405-340 limits post-notification modifications to what say within the original scope of the proposal, which is a process as strained. We are not asking the council to abandon this code. We are asking the council to withdraw its current CR 102, complete a technical group's work, and reissue a complete proposal with genuine public comment periods. So the decision as ban the CMU's mass wall are made to complete records and not potential ones. Thank you.
Next up in person, we have Steve Winkler.
Well, good morning, Chair and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Steve Winkler, and while I'm employed as an organizer with the Washington and Northern Idaho District Council of Laborers, I'm testifying today as a Spokane resident regarding the proposed changes to the commercial and residential energy codes. I want to talk about geography. The code as proposed does not treat Washington as one state. It treats it as two. The proposed commercial energy credit requirements ask projects in Eastern Washington to hit credit levels that exceed the efficiency targets the legislature actually set. Eastern Washington's climate, with our colder winters, hotter summers, wider temperature swings, already demand more mechanical capacity, more insulation, and more equipment just to keep a building comfortable. Layering additional credits requirements on top of that really doesn't produce proportional savings, but it does produce a disproportionate cost. And right now, cost is not an abstraction for Eastern Washington. It's the difference between rebuilding and not rebuilding. As the council knows, wildfires this week have destroyed hundreds of homes and businesses around Spokane, with thousands more evacuated and entire neighborhoods reduced to ash. Families and business owners across the region are now staring at exactly the kind of ground-up reconstruction this code will govern. They will need to permit, design, and pay for new commercial buildings and multifamily housing at the worst possible moment while insurance is scarce, materials are expensive, and labor and contractors are stretched across an entire region trying to rebuild all at once. This is not a hypothetical burden. It is happening right now to my community with a code that was written without their circumstances in mind. When credit requirements force more expensive mechanical systems, larger electrical services, and additional engineering onto every rebuild, we are not just adding line items to a budget. We are adding months to a timeline for families trying to reopen a business or rebuild a home before winter. In some cases, we are pricing rebuilds out of existence entirely. Affordability is not a side issue in this code. It is a central issue for the part of the state that needs to build the most, the fastest, with the least room for error. We are asking the council to revise the commercial energy credit requirements so they reflect Eastern Washington's climate and its current crisis, not to weaken energy efficient goals, but to make sure those goals can actually be met by the people who have to build under them. A technology neutral, regionally sensible credit structure gets more buildings built, more families rehoused, and more businesses reopened. That is a better outcome for everyone, including the environment. Thank you.
Next up online, Elizabeth Torsky.
Thank you. This is Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas. For my first comment, I would like to address comments 24, GP1, 224, 225, 226, 227, 228, 229, 230, and 231. All of these proposals are related to thermal energy network systems. Cascade is one of many utilities with service areas in Washington state that is actively pursuing pilot projects for thermal energy network systems. These proposals provide a definition for these systems and provide considerations in various sections of the Commercial Energy Code. These systems are a little bit unique in the sense that they are serving multiple buildings at one time. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the proponents for bringing these proposals forward and allowing thermal energy network systems to get consideration in the current commercial energy codes for the Washington state. I will yield my time for those comments and continue with my next series of comments. So Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas Corporation. This comment is related to 24 GP1 209. I would like to oppose this comment. This proposal requires that air conditioning equipment include a heat pump as the primary heating source at the time of replacement. I would like to echo what many have said before in these hearings, that requiring a technology shift is not necessary. And I think it is important for building owners and building operators to be able to replace like for like, and that the code should not mandate certain technology switches. For my next comment, Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas for 24 GP1-263R. This proposal requires electric readiness for commercial kitchens. I oppose this proposal as commercial kitchens need to be able to choose the technologies that best fit their business model. Requiring electric readiness increased costs for building owners and operators, and it installs equipment that may or may not ever be used, and therefore does not guarantee any kind of efficiency. Installing this equipment installing these electrical services for equipment that is not part of a planned construction or remodel increases costs, and also it puts designers in a challenging environment where they have to design for an unknown quantity. Most kitchen designers and and kitchen owners have very well thought out plans for how they want their equipment to run in their kitchen, where they want to put it. And this provision is just an increased cost, one of many in the energy code. And though in the future, a building owner or operator may want to switch, that isn't any different than replacing equipment in future. And I think it's overreaching for this code to insist on electric readiness at the time of construction. Finally, for this set, Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas, 24 GP1 279R. I'm not supporting or opposing this proposal, but what I am commenting on, as others have before, is that the truth of the matter is I don't know what the new energy credits will be. This proposal never provided those. So I can't really provide good feedback or comment on credit values that were never published to the public. I would strongly encourage the council to consider reopening at least part of CR 102 for this provision in particular, as this is a linchpin of how the energy code is applied to buildings. Without knowing credit tables, you're definitely trying to design and plan on a moving target without knowing these credit values. I would strongly, strongly urge that this needs to be reevaluated, that work on this proposal and credit values needs to be part of a public record, and that as is, the CR 102 should not be approved without reopening and reconsidering this proposal for public comment once credit value tables have been published. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Have Larry Andrews. And Larry's ready to go to the Senate table.
You want me to go there?
No.
Okay. I'm actually Edwin L. Andrews II. I go by Larry. It's 24-GP1-268C104.2.1. And this is so cost prohibitive. It's unbelievable. We ran into up at JCPenney's here when they had a huge electric water heater. And if we were to put gas in there, it would have been $40,000. And I got a quote from the manufacturer to do the heat pump trick that they want. First off, we got to make room for all the heat pumps and the storage tanks. So we have to build a structure to put all this stuff in. When the price came in, it was like $250,000. So when you're going to go from gas, I can put 1 million BTUs at 95% efficient in a 3x8 space. And the same space required is like 10 feet by 12 feet to get the tanks and everything in there. And then on top of it is the replacement cost. The heat pumps will only last 12 years, guaranteed already from the manufacturer. For the gas units, we're getting 30 years out of them. So now, instead of a $40,000 project, it come into a $500,000 project when you have to replace it. Plus the cost at that point will definitely be a lot more. I would ask that you would remove this provision for people that use large volumes water heaters, like Golden Corral up here. He's burning 500,000 BTUs in that facility just to try to keep up with the dishes. Okay. There's numerous kitchens around here that easily use 500,000 BTUs. Okay. And to ask these people to come in and try and retrofit something like this in their facility is ridiculous. And then you have the electric panels that you're going to have to update. And you're going to have to put a substation in there to deliver all this power. And where are you going to get the power? We don't have this kind of power. It's time that there's a rethink here of what's going on. And it's
It's not about the CO2, because if you know anything about CO2, it falls like a rock. So our atmosphere with CO2 is coming from the jets. It has nothing to do with natural gas being burnt here. Okay, all the CO2 being burnt here on the ground is going to the crops. And I've got multiple CO2 readings to tell you why that's true. Thank you.
Next up, Larry Andrews again.
So that's the one about the Masons, I think. So that's 24 GP1-264. I got 264. He wrote 246. So I don't know if I got it right or he's got it right. And 256. I'm a proponent for high mass walls. We have a patent, radiant heat, radiant cooling, $250,000 patent, $2.5 million worth of prototypes that blow all your people's stuff out of the water. We are so much more efficient in this state. And we did it 10 years ago. And we went through the process of patenting all this stuff. But when you start looking at the cost that's involved to do all this stuff, to get to this efficiency level that you guys want to think about getting at, it's prohibitive. And only the few rich can afford such a system. It's a fabulous system, but the cost is enormous. Okay. And seal fume block, I have a personal garage that uses very little heat to heat my garage. And it's the only, when you have a block garage, you have something really great. Okay. And it's just the way to go. I can't explain it enough until you see when it's 10 below outside and I put my hand on that block at 10 below with the sun on it, and I can't keep my hand on the block on the outside. That's what CMU block is about. It's about taking that energy and putting it back into that room. And the reason why we do a lot of calculations, my company does, and the reason why the R value doesn't represent the true value of the block is the only thing, when you look at how the engineered group takes apart that block, they take it apart in sections. They take apart the cement, they take apart the dead air space, and they take apart the other layer of cement. What they don't take apart is how the mason assembled the block onto the block. The block is put into an airtight assembly that traps the heat in the block. And that's why CFM block is much better than any calculations that they can figure, because they don't have a way to figure such information as present. The CFM block is by far one of the best systems on the market. And if you have a gymnasium where you got kids playing, it's the only system to have on your walls. Thank you.
Next up, Larry Andrews.
Let's see, so that one is, where are we at? 503. That's residential though. We're going to take that.
C406.
C406.1. So CO4 is about making for commercials heat pumps. This is a total bias that heat pumps equipments over gas is more efficient. You have to look at the application of what you're doing here before you even think about this, of what the efficiency is, how I'm bringing that building up and how I'm bringing that building down. Let's say if I have a gas furnace, big bad gas equipment, radiant heat in there. I can shut that radiant gas heat off nearly, let that building drift down to 35 degrees, and then bring it on in the morning for those people to heat, and the floor will be warm, okay? It'll be warm for those people for 8 hours with gas radiant heat. This is the radiant heat from the ceiling. So a heat pump system, I've got to keep that room nearly the same temperature all the time. And I'm expending energy 24/7. It's already been documented by Radiant Systems that it's much better to use the gas radiant, much cost effective than what you are, especially with aircraft hangars. Okay. Can you imagine the door opens, all the heat goes out, but with a radiant heat, you can bring it right back within about 5 minutes. A heat pump system, you'll be running there 20 hours to try to get that thing back warm again. Okay. You people have gone so far the wrong way. The people that needs to be working on whether it's a heat pump system, a gas system, or what it is, should be the engineer, the owner, and the contractor. You guys are in the wrong game here because you're costing millions upon millions of dollars to people that are never going to get any gain here. And you're in the wrong game. I would remove that ability from this state to decide what type of system they put in. You need to talk to your engineer, you need to talk to your owner, and you need to talk to your contractor. And those are the three people that need to be involved with federal standards to get the job done. Thank you.
Larry, did I get you to talk on 40421? Yeah, I might have skipped that one.
404. 40. Residential, yeah, residential. I've got C503.47.
Right for that one if you want to go.
Okay, let's
That
go
was
with that.
the heat pump water heater, so he did speak to that one.
I thought I skipped over. Thank you, Krista.
Okay. So 24-GP1-267 C503.4.7. Restricting the placement of the equipment. I'm talking more here about retrofit applications. And you're trying to tell us what we can do with a retrofit application here of how we're going to do this. And there's so many different things that we run across in a retrofit application where we got equipment to replace. Does the owner want to have a heat pump? Does the owner want to have a different type of boiler? And for you guys to try and blanket this is wrong again. It's so wrong that when you don't get the engineer involved and the owner involved and the contractor involved, the one that's going to lose is the owner. Okay, the one that has that unit that has to provide it, fix it all the time. He's the one that's going to have to support it. And they have hard talks about all this before they do their job right now. And you're trying to take them out of the conversation here. And you're going to tell them what they're going to spend. Well, you're going to spend people out of oblivion. And it's the fact. And it's not little dollars here. We're talking big bucks. Okay, and a lot of these commercial applications, which you guys are thinking of proposing. And it's not good for this state because you're going to run the businesses right out of the state. They're already running to Idaho right now because they're so afraid of what you guys are doing. Okay. And so what is that going to do? That's going to put a lot of us people out of work. Okay. And then you're not going to have the revenue to do with what you want anymore. Okay. And that's not good for any of us. Thank you.
One more for the code 503.4.4.
Yeah, I got that one. So this is 24-GP1-209 C503.04.4. Okay. This is the worst thing the state building code could do. Take the right away from the owners and the contractors. I've already said it once. We don't have the power to do what you guys want to do right now. That's one of the critical structures. Now, if you would let us put natural gas plants near all these cities and have peak on demand and start using your heads, So we could have power to do with what we need in the short term, so we could use our wind energy, count on our wind energy. And if we get hurting, we can pop back over to natural gas for a little while until it picks up the power. Okay. Those things could make a huge difference, but you won't let that happen in this state. Here again, you're all worried about the CO2 that's hitting the ground and feeding our plants. But really, you won't let us touch the jets. You're never going to get 50,000 horsepower out of an electric engine that a jet engine produced. So we're going to live with it as long as we've got aircraft in this air. Okay. It isn't us that's causing the problem. Maintenance costs for heat pumps. You just doubled your maintenance cost. Why have you doubled your maintenance cost for heat pumps? Heat pumps run nearly 24/7. Air conditioners run 3 months out of the year, 4 months if you're commercial. Okay. When you got a heat pump running 24/7 with reversing valves, and then you're moving charges back and forth, those things all wear. And it all costs money. And when they break down, they're expensive, because now we have to reclaim everything, fix the part, find the part that's bad, and then repair the part. There's a lot more maintenance with heat pumps. And when you look in some of this new stuff and you take the top off and it looks like spaghetti in the top of it, it is spaghetti. Okay. And so a lot of contractors try to repair them and then they give up and they just sell them another new system at 6-7 years into it. You're going against EPCA here too by forcing this. That's wrong. Okay. You're going to be right in the federal lawsuit, something the state really shouldn't be thinking about, but here it is. I've given you the talk about CO2. CO2 is much heavier than air. It drops like a rock. So get off it with using natural gas. Higher first time cost. So now you put the owner into a higher first time cost, higher maintenance cost, and guess what? You're going to pay more at whatever he has to sell you. Lots more. Remember that the AC unit will last twice as long as the heat pump unit. So now you got replacements cost in your deal, strictly because of runtime. Remove this from the state building code, please. Thank you.
All right, next up online, looking for Lowell Glodowski.
Hi, Dustin. I'm going to be speaking on 2 topics here. I'm going to probably go roughly 4 minutes. So,
Okay, are they separated, the 264 and 256 proposals?
yes, but I'll be speaking to both of those. I just wanted to let you know I'm going to be over the 3-minute threshold in general. So
I'll give you 6 minutes for the 2 topics.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today and for the work you do to protect the safety, resilience, and long-term performance of Washington's buildings. My name is Lowell Glodowski, and in this capacity, I'm the chair of the Western Washington Masonry Trades Apprenticeship and Training Committee. Our apprenticeship program has proudly trained Washington masonry craft workers since July 25th, 1940. I am a product of this program. For more than 86 years, we partnered with contractors, industry leaders to develop highly skilled journey-level bricklayers and masonry craft workers who help build schools, hospitals, military facilities, courthouses, and countless public and private buildings throughout our state. Today, every apprentice who enters our program depends on real construction projects to gain the on-the-job, hands-on experience required to complete a registered apprenticeship. That is why I'm here today. The proposed changes in 24 GP1 264R and 256 are much bigger than one wall assembly. If the long-standing compliance path for the single-wide masonry wall is removed, many owners and architects and contractors will simply choose another building system. That means fewer masonry projects, fewer apprenticeship opportunities, and fewer family wage careers for Washington workers. Registered apprenticeship cannot succeed without real jobs. Every masonry project creates opportunities to train the skilled workforce that Washington will depend on for decades to come. As we continue to experience devastating wildfires, earthquakes, flooding, and natural disasters, Resilience should remain one of the guiding principles of our building code. Masonry has proven itself for generations. It provides exceptional fire resistance, durability, flood resilience, low maintenance, and long service life. Its thermal mass naturally moderates temperature swings and helps reduce peak heating and cooling demands. Perhaps most importantly, the most sustainable building is one that lasts. Masonry buildings continue to serve our communities for generations while reducing waste and conserving resources. I would also like to adjust the process. The technical advisory groups exist to provide the council with sound technical recommendations based on science, engineering, and practical experience. However, on page 2, the CR 102 itself states under table C 402.1.3 that the TAG did not have the time to recalculate the option 1 assembly with the improved baseline. Yet this proposal still removes the long-standing footnote recognizing single-wide masonry walls as code compliant. I respectfully ask the council to consider whether the technical review is complete enough to justify eliminating a compliance path that has been recognized through multiple code cycles. If the technical advisory group did not have sufficient time to complete its evaluation, I believe these proposals deserve additional technical review before moving forward. We're not asking the council to lower the energy code or create a new exception. We're simply asking you to preserve a proven compliance path until the technical analysis is complete and the full impacts on affordability, workforce development, resilience, and long-term building performance have been fully evaluated. On behalf of Western Washington Masonry Trades Committee, our instructors, contractors, and 153 registered apprentices, I respectfully ask you to reject 24 GP1 264R and 256. Thank you for your time, your service, and your consideration.
That's the last registrant for the commercial energy code. We'll begin the registered testimony for the residential energy code. And up first in person, I have Kelly Kukai. You want to put it into the general? Okay, I think I had you twice on. Okay, I have you registered twice on here, so I missed that other registration. Yeah, I have you down there.
Since you're checking, Dustin, would you see if Jesse Lowry with Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce is signed up to? She sent me her testimony. She was not able to make it, and if I can, I will read it.
I'd be happy if you'd like to take the.
Because this is a commercial kind of.
Yes.
So is that okay?
That's okay.
All right, thank you. I didn't see your name on the list, but she had sent it to me last night and asked if I had the opportunity to present it.
What was her name again?
Jessie Lowry, and she is the executive director of the Greater Spokane Incorporated Chamber of Commerce. And I can give you a copy of this afterwards too, so that you can get the information. So she thought she had sent her written testimony and registered online.
When you're ready.
Okay. So I'm Suzanne Schmidt, representative for the 4th Legislative District, and I am reading a statement on behalf of Jesse Lowry, the president, CEO of the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. So the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce represents hundreds of businesses across industries that collectively employ thousands of people throughout the Spokane Valley and Greater Eastern Washington region. Our members include builders, contractors, manufacturers, developers, small business owners, healthcare providers, professional service firms, and employers who depend on a healthy, growing regional economy. The Chamber supports reasonable efforts to improve energy efficiency, and recognizes the important role of the building code plays in creating sustainable communities. However, these objectives must be balanced with economic reality, affordability, and our region's ability to continue attracting investment, creating jobs and meeting growing demands for housing and commercial development. Our concern with proposal 24 GP164, 264R and 24 GP1256 is not the goal of energy efficiency itself. Rather, it is the accumulative burden that changes many places of businesses, development, economic competitiveness in Eastern Washington. Our region is already navigating rising construction costs, workforce shortages, inflationary pressures, housing affordability challenges, and an increasingly difficult environment for business investment. Every additional regulatory requirement adds cost, complexity, and uncertainty to projects that are already difficult to finance. Those costs are ultimately borne by the employer, developer, nonprofit, public agency, homeowner, renter, and consumer. We are particularly concerned about the effect these proposals will have on housing production and commercial development. Communities across Eastern Washington are working to increase housing supply, attract employers, and encourage redevelopment. Policies that significantly increase construction costs or create additional burdens to development risks slow projects, reduce investment, and make it more difficult to address our region's housing and workforce needs. And I'm going to leave it there. There's a few more paragraphs, but I'm out of time, so. And I will give this to you, Dustin, and I believe it was submitted for written testimony. Okay, thank you.
And next up, in person, I have Gavin Tennell.
Good morning, Chair Bayweather and members of the committee. My name is Gavin Tennell, here today to speak in full support of the written comments being submitted by Shift Zero, which provide a targeted adjustment to section R406, option 6, the renewable energy credits. I feel a little responsible for an adjustment in the credits that was made at the MVPE committee, the Tennell-Johnson amendment, which resulted in this increase. It was when we suggested that you guys add energy storage to the credit table. I support reducing the total maximum available credits for the renewable energy option by 1/2 credit, while maintaining the 5 credit cap for option 6.1 standalone solar without storage, as per the comments being submitted. As the owner of a solar energy company, I obviously support renewable energy, but the credit table must also encourage measures that reduce energy demand in the first place, such as improved building envelopes, efficient mechanical systems, air sealing, and high-performance windows. If renewable energy receives too much of a share of the available credits, projects may rely primarily on generation rather than pursuing a balanced combination of efficiency and clean energy. For these reasons, I respectfully ask you to adopt this change.
All right, I have you down for one more.
Thanks, Dustin. Good morning again. For the record, my name is Gavin Tennell, representing the Washington Solar Energy Industries Association this time. I also served on the ERI work group and the Residential Technical Advisory Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the CR 102 proposals for the Washington State Energy Code update. I'm here this time to address the Energy Reduction Index, or ERI, a compliance pathway that is in the CR 102. ERI provides an alternative to the prescriptive code pathway, giving builders flexibility while still requiring equivalent energy performance. Washington has not previously adopted ERI because of concerns about stringency and potential misuse.
But this cycle, the work group which I was on, we developed compromises and safeguards intended to ensure that ERI buildings perform as well as prescriptive code buildings and comply with RCW 1927A160. Unfortunately, an important part of that agreement, the 1.1 building envelope UA reduction multiplier, was omitted from the CR 102. Without it, the ERI pathway could allow weaker building envelopes and lead to higher energy costs for occupants. PNNL analysis also found that on-site renewable energy, such as solar, is overweighted in the ERI calculations. This could allow solar generation to compensate too much for an insufficient building envelope. I asked the council to make several corrections, and they are being submitted in the form of comments by the organization Shift Zero as well as WSEC. First, restore the 1.1 building thermal envelope multiplier in section R408.3. Second, establish separate tables for buildings with and without on-site power production. Based on PNNL modeling, we recommend ERI reductions of 8 in climate zone 4 and 6 in climate zone 5. 50 seconds. These values provide a reasonable balance between efficiency and renewable generation and more conservative than corresponding IECC adjustments. Finally, please include energy storage systems in the ERI pathway with clear, verifiable, and performance-based accounting. Thank you for your consideration.
Next up online, looking for Jeremy Smithson. You should be able to unmute, and when you're ready, I'll start the timer. Jeremy Smithson, are you with us? All right, we will come back to Jeremy. Looking next for Jason Acosta.
Hi, I'm Jason Acosta. I'm an engineer. I'm a principal at RDH Building Science. I am speaking to tables R402.1.2 and R402.1.3. The U factor in R402.1.2 is listed as 0.056. This can be achieved with a 2x6 framing and R21 bat insulation in the cavity. The R value table requires continuous exterior insulation. It does not align with the U value requirement. The U value was reduced to 0.045 in the 2021 IECC, but this was not adopted into the 2021 WSEC U value tables. This has led to widespread confusion due to the discrepancy between U value and R value tables. Many builders and architects do not have consultants for residential construction. And when they become aware of this discrepancy, in my experience, they often become very frustrated. It's very important that the U value in R value tables, the U factor in R value tables align. The 2024 WSEC needs to catch up to the 2021 IECC and adopt the U value of 0.045. Thank you.
All right, Jeremy Smithson, you got your hand up. I have you down for 2 rows here. I think they're on the same topic. Do you need 2 slots to talk? Or Jeremy, you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, actually, I was hoping to comment on an IRC measure that the comments are closed now, but it's pretty practical. And
so we're accepting comments on the IRC at this hearing. We are doing the residential energy code.
Okay, well, then I'm signed up to comment on that. Thanks to the chair and to council members for the opportunity to comment on residential code table R406. For the record, my name's Jeremy Smithson, founder of general and electrical contractor Puget Sound Solar in Seattle. And I'm actually testifying on behalf of Washington Solar Energy Industries Association. This is Puget Sound Solar's 26th year in business, and boy, do I wish that climate conditions were the same as they were when we started.
But wishful thinking will not prepare us for the future. A climate-enhanced disaster such as the one devastating portions of Spokane today should not serve as an excuse to repeat the mistakes of the past, especially not in the building codes. That said, I am in favor of modest modification of RO 406 that would leave more points on the table for efficiency measures other than solar PV and battery storage by reducing the possible points for 6.1 and 6.2 by 1/2 a point. Efficiency technology has advanced a lot in the time that I've been in the solar business, and so making room for more of that makes total sense. And thanks for the time.
Jeremy, did you need another slot for the Tyndall Johnson amendment by chance?
No, that was actually the same. So.
Okay, and then I do want to offer, if you want to submit your residential code comments in writing to me, I'd be happy to make them available to the council, but the comment period is closed on that code at the moment.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, in person, Alan Nolan. Okay, on his way. We'll mark him down, and when he's here, just let me know and get him up there. Next up in person, Ann Anderson.
Okay, I'm just going to give my introduction once and then have 3 minutes for the 4 items.
You have 4 slots here, so you got 12 minutes total.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ann Anderson. I am a structural engineer and owner of Green Mountain Structural Engineering in Camas, Washington. We specialize in residential design, and we are also providing energy analysis for our home builder and home designer and homeowner clients. I served on the residential tag as an alternate. I'm also on the National Association of Home Builders Construction Codes and Standards Committee, and have served on the Model Codes IRCB Code Development Committees for 3 cycles, and was on the 2021 ICC Code of Board of Appeals. Okay, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the above grade U factor. This was brought up on Wednesday's meeting. This U value of 0.056 should stay in the CR 102 documents. It is true that the U factor for the above grade walls that was in the integrated draft and was agreed upon by the tag was 0.045. However, the U factor that is in the CR 102 documents that are on the SBCC's website is 0.056, which is the same U factor that was in the 2021 Washington State Energy Code. This is the information that was made available to the public on the SBCC website in advance of this public comment hearing. This cannot be changed to 0.045 and then placed directly in the energy code without giving the public a chance to review this and provide public comment. There may be people who would have commented on the change from 0.056 to 0.045 had they known about it. There were previous meetings that the public could have participated in along the way, but some people may have purposely waited until the end of the process to review the final documents and then decide if there were any items that concerned them. Going from a U factor of 0.056 to 0.045 for above grade walls is a significant change and will require going from in-cavity only insulation in a 2x6 stud wall to providing an additional layer of continuous insulation on the exterior of the building. This adds a lot of cost as well as framing changes. This may have prompted some public comments. The revised Code of Washington, RCW 19.27032 states, quote, "The council shall develop a process for council meetings that allows members of the public to understand amendments being proposed for adoption," quote. "Publishing one value and then changing it without notifying the public would not follow such a process." Also, RCW 19.2734 states, quote, "The council may not adopt a proposal that is substantially different from the proposal made available for public testimony, except as provided by RCW 34.05. And I've read that, and there's nothing in there that provides any exceptions for making a substantial change such as this. Therefore, the U factor of 0.056 must stay in the CR 102
If it were to change to 0.045, then a public notice of this code change is required and new proceedings must be made for additional public comment on this matter. Okay. Moving on, again, Ann Anderson, structural engineer. I'm going to speak on the electric readiness proposal. This code proposal should not be considered for this code adoption cycle because it does not meet the scope and intent of the Washington State Energy Code. The intent reads, quote, "This code shall regulate the design and construction of buildings for the effective use and conservation of energy over the useful life of each building," quote. This proposal's requirements for adding in electrical conduits, wiring, and space on the electrical panel do not contribute to the, quote, "effective use or conservation of energy," quote. They are only adding costs with no benefit. This similar proposal has come up twice in the model code development during the 2021 IECC and the 2024 IECC code cycles. Both times they were voted into the code and then were appealed and removed from the code. After the 2024 IECC appeals, the ICC stated, quote, "The International Code Council Board of Directors determined that the scope and intent governing the 2024 IECC prohibited the inclusion of measures that did not directly affect building energy conservation," quote. This proposal puts a what-if scenario into the code, which is outside the scope of the code. The proponent's reason statement says, quote, "Currently, it is very expensive to switch from gas water heaters, gas stoves, and gas dryers to their electric alternatives due to inadequate electrical infrastructure. This expense is one of the primary barriers to consumer adoption of higher efficiency electric appliances," quote. In fact, we do not know that consumers will want to change from gas to electrical appliances. As an owner of a home with gas heat and gas appliances, I would not voluntarily change to electrical appliances. Natural gas is reliable, clean, and affordable. It also provides a warmer feel when compared to electric heat. Speculating on a future change that may or may not happen is not how the code works. A design is presented for the home, and if it meets the current requirements of the code, then it should be permitted to be built. Currently, natural gas appliances are allowed in the code. Adding electrical conduits is not required for the use of these appliances. Allowing what-if reasoning could invite many more proposals based on possible choices a homeowner might make in the future. For example, if a homeowner might later want to add a second story onto their house, should the code require larger footings now to save money later? There are endless ways to prepare a home today for unknown future changes. This proposal does not belong in the Washington State Energy Code. Okay, moving on. The next proposal I'm speaking on is the RE036 window requirements. I would like to urge the council to not move the window U factor from 0.3 to 0.27. This is too much of a jump at this time. The 2024 IECC model code is 0.28, and that is a U factor that should be in the 2024 Washington State Energy Code. The reason stated that Oregon is going to 0.27 does not paint the full picture. Besides this U factor change, the 2024 Oregon Residential Specialty Code's prescriptive envelope requirements have R21 for the wall installation instead of R20+5, and R49 for the ceiling installation instead of R60. Both are common sense reductions to the installation requirements, which are based on cost effectiveness rather than a decision based solely on reducing energy consumption. The approval of this amendment by the Residential Energy TAG group is typical of the decisions made by this group. The majority of the voting members only considered proposals that moved the energy savings forward. Costs were not a concern, no matter how little the energy savings were and how great the costs. When developing the integrated draft, their goal was to only bring in items of the 2024 IECC from the 2024 IECC that increased the building envelope stringency. Other items from the 2024 IECC that made sense for affordability or flexibility reasons were kept out. For example, the R60 attic insulation was rolled back to R49 in the 2024 IECC. The TAG kept the R60 value. Increasing insulation beyond R30 has diminishing returns. According to Home Innovation Research Labs, the simple payback to go from R49 to R60 in climate zone 4 is 152 years. Here in climate zone 5, it is 118 years. To keep something in the code that will take over 100 years to pay off is ridiculous. I had written down unreasonable, but it's ridiculous. As a whole, the Oregon insulation and U factors are much better than the proposed Washington requirements because they have been decided by balancing energy efficiency with housing affordability. Even though Oregon is going to 0.27, Washington should not because they have much more onerous insulation requirements for the attic and the walls. Moving the window U factor from 0.3 to 0.28 is already a 7% improvement in efficiency and is a sensible advancement at this time. Please disapprove this amendment. Okay, last one. I'm here to ask this council to not accept the MVPE proposal that will reinstate the 15% cap on glazing in the component pathway. This does not meet the requirements of the Washington State Building Code's review and adoption process. I've submitted a lengthy written comment on this, but the bottom line is that Shell Anderson decided to submit this as a correction or editorial change after the TAG meetings were concluded and the integrated draft had been submitted because he and some other members of the TAG realized that they had missed this change when the integrated draft was being reviewed. This is a substantial change to the code and must go through the formal process of review in order to be considered by the council. The TAG discussed this section of the code at their February 27th, 2025 meeting. It was not missed or accidentally omitted. During the meeting, Shell asked if anyone had comments on section R402.1.5. The code section was presented on the screen and clearly showed the proposed model code equation underlined in red. The original version from the 2021 Washington Energy Code, which had the 15% cap, was shown clearly crossed out in red. There was silence while we all viewed this information. Then Larry Andrews spoke up and said, quote, Dwayne, have you ran the equations back and forth between our equations and their equations? Have you ran numbers through those to see if where we're at? I mean, because this is quite a bit of change, it looks like to me, quote. Then Dwayne Jonalin said, quote, I think they just arrived at much, and I was part of that, but a simpler way to get to the same thing, quote. Then Shell said, quote, okay, keep going, quote. No changes were suggested by the TAG to this section, which means the model code version of the equation was accepted. The TAG members that say this was a miss did not review this section ahead of time, and once Dwayne spoke up, they simply went with what he said and moved on. They did not come to the meeting prepared and should not be given a do-over. If you modify the UA equation per this proposal, then a home with a window area exceeding 15% of the floor area would not receive a true UA envelope comparison. In addition to being mathematically incorrect, this would make the UA alternate approach inconsistent with the other approaches allowed in R402, which do not cap the window area. This change is definitely an amendment to the code, and since it was not submitted per the rules, it should not be considered by this council. Thank you.
Thoughts on calling somebody we missed, Alan Nolan in person?
Yeah, sure. You guys board members are?
Those are board members, yeah. Got another one for, get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. State Board, SBCC board members, my comments today are as a contractor who has built new homes, remodeled existing ones, and served on energy code tag, as well as been nominated to this board that you sit on. While there are numerous.
Can you state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
Yeah.
My name's Alan Nolan. I am. Is there any other information that you need? Okay. All right. As I mentioned, my comments today are as a contractor who's built new homes, remodeled existing ones, served on energy code tag, as well as been nominated to this board.
While there are numerous problems with the proposals for the energy codes that you guys are looking at today, I'm going to focus on two that are particularly onerous, and also two that are more appropriate in the direction that they move state building codes. First off, I'm going to look at the HRV ERV for Control Zone 5 that is part of R403.6.1, 24-RE-38. All right, as a builder and a former energy rater, HRVs and ERVs are a complete waste of time and money. Under the best case scenarios, the payback exceeds 40 years, which is almost twice the lifespan of a typical unit. In real world conditions, the results are actually much worse because people don't maintain these units, and they do need to be maintained in order to run efficiently and really serve the purpose of energy efficiency at all. Continuous ventilation is a perfectly appropriate and cost-effective means for indoor ventilation, which is an appropriate goal. I encourage you to reject 24RE038 and as a rule, don't require or even promote these ineffective appliances. Next, electric readiness R404.5, and that's 18 on your, and this is where the RCW comes in. Because this proposal violates Washington State RCW because it imposes costs with no definitive benefits. A similar proposal was made when I served on the Energy Code TAG in 2018. It was rejected for the same reason. My company does a lot of remodeling work, and we pull new home runs on a regular basis. It's not always easy, but I haven't found a case where we can't do it. More important, though, I remind you that we are not particularly good at identifying future requirements. My time is on the electrical home runs required. By the time the electrical home runs are required for this proposal are even considered, there may be a higher or a lower requirement, meaning they're overbuilt or underbuilt. 24RE18 must be rejected outright based on violation of RCW. For the ERI pathway and the home size brackets, I would encourage you guys to approve both. That's 33 and 35. Both of these give options to the market to make decisions on how to best achieve improved energy efficiency in the most economically sound manner, and also restore the opportunity to come up with creative solutions for flexibility when designing homes to meet community needs. I encourage you to approve both of these. Finally, I want to echo what the prior individual mentioned, that as the board, you should look at the TAG process and recommend changes. The 50-year period that they use for recovery is unreasonable, and the situation that she described was a situation that I saw when I served on the TAG as well. The TAG is overstaffed the individual's March qualifications and motives that have little relationship to seeing our citizens housed in efficient homes that they can actually afford. I appreciate your time listening to this. I understand, recognize the limits of your authority as board members on this, but I ask you to use that and to speak up on the authority that is granted to the elected officials to highlight these issues in order to fix these problems. Thank you for your time today.
Peter, you said support for 033035. That's opposed.
Yeah, 33 and 30. 33/40 is how it's listed, and then 35. So it's the option 3 on the option 3 for the home size brackets, which is 35. But then supporting ERI pathway, and that's 33/40.
Thank you. All right, next up online, I'm looking for Tom Balderston. I don't see you online. If you are, please use the raise hand function so I can identify you. I'm not seeing any new hands coming up. Looking again for online Zachary Silecki. Zach, you should be able to go when you're ready.
So can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. For the record, my name is Zachary Silecki, and I'm here on behalf of Northwest Natural. We are a state-regulated utility headquartered in downtown Portland and provide energy for more than 2 million people and thousands of businesses throughout Oregon and Southwest Washington. More than half of our workforce is represented by OPEIU Local 11. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide feedback on the proposed residential energy code provisions. While we share the goal of efficient, resilient, and lower emission housing, We have significant concerns regarding the indirect and direct electrification components embedded within the residential code, specifically through energy credit structures, section R406. Fuel disincentivizing baseline models and electric readiness mandates. We strongly urge the council to preserve true fuel neutrality, housing affordability, and recognize the importance of energy reliability by re-evaluating these components. Although recent revisions moved away from direct heat pump mandates to avoid federal preemption, the current structure relies on energy credit penalties that disadvantages homes using natural gas or dual fuel systems, setting baseline credit requirements that force mixed-use homes to add significant extra measures, such as a higher envelope efficiency or solar, creates a de facto restriction on energy choice. Homeowners and builders should retain the flexibility to choose energy systems that best fit their operational needs, geography, and local energy availability without facing compounding code penalties. Washington and the broader Pacific Northwest are facing a severe housing affordability crisis. Layering additional compliance costs onto residential construction directly impacts homebuyers and renters. Mandating oversized electrical panels, heavy amp service upgrades, and redundant electrification readiness conduit for gas appliances drives up both equipment and labor costs before homes are even occupied. To achieve compliance under penalized fuel pass, builders are forced to add complex, high-cost building envelope or renewable system. This pushes the dream of home ownership out of the reach of lower and middle-class families. To balance decarbonization goals with housing affordability and grid safety, we request the council to consider the following adjustments: recalibrate section R406 energy credits, remove unnecessary wiring and readiness mandates, and incentivize dual fuel and hybrid systems. Building code should encourage energy efficiency, but they must remain workable, cost-effective, and technology neutral. By ensuring fair compliance pathways for all energy sources, the state can advance energy efficiency without compromising home affordability. Thank you again for your consideration today. And on there too, if I may add, the individual, I put individual to reflect the record. I'm with Northwest Natural.
All right, next up, I have in person Gavin Tennell. Did you need another slot?
Yep.
Thank you again, Chair Fairweather, and members of the State Building Code Council. And thanks again for allowing me one last opportunity to testify today. For the record, my name is Gavin Tennell, and I am representing WSEC. I also served on the technical advisory group for the residential code. And before getting into the solar industry, I was a residential builder specializing in high performance passive house residential construction. I want to speak directly about the incorrect U value in section R402.1.2 of the CR 102, which you've heard some testimony on today. As others have stated, thermal envelopes are integral to high quality residential construction. They play a critical role in a building's energy efficiency, comfort, durability, moisture control, and overall performance. As someone who has given a lot of time and effort to this process, it is particularly frustrating that this important detail was missed in the CR 102 again, after passing through the Energy Code TAG, MVPE committees, and ultimately Council 2. Leaving this discrepancy uncorrected sets our state backwards and does not reflect the legislative directive of reducing energy efficiency. Moreover, this detail is connected to the ERI pathway, which I testified on earlier. This correction is essential to maintaining adequate envelope performance for the new projects which will be using that pathway. And I want to make sure that I'm clear that I do support the ERI pathway. WSEC supports the ERI pathway. It's important that we give builders the flexibility to begin to understand the connection in the decisions that they're making, and this pathway does that in a big way. However, if the U value table is not corrected, we cannot support the ERI pathway. because of the allowances that are in the pathway for reducing U value efficiency even further than this air, which I'm already speaking to. With that, I'll wrap up by thanking you for your consideration and all of your time today. Thank you.
All right, next up online, I have Jason Acosta.
Okay, hi. Jason Acosta. Last time you all have to hear from me today. I'm an engineer and a principal at RDH Building Science, testifying as an individual in coordination with Shift Zero on the R408 ERI path. I've been advocating for including an ERI path in the code for quite some time through Shift Zero. I feel that it introduces important flexibility to help keep costs down by allowing builders and architects to weigh different paths to code compliance and figure out what's best on their own. A long time ago, I was an energy rater in Colorado, and I felt that the independent inspections that energy raters bring really help improve the quality of construction. However, there are some important changes needed to the for the ERI path to be incorporated. So I'm going to echo some of previous comments. I understand there was an error and that the thermal envelope multiplier that limits trade-offs against the enclosure. It provides a 1.1 multiplier on envelope conductance has been omitted from the CR 102. It's extremely important to backstop in the ERI path to limit how much trading can go against the enclosure, how many trade-offs can go against the enclosure, and this is not included in its current form. Our commercial energy code includes a similar backstop, and it's imperative that that's included. Additionally, all the modeling that was done to establish the ERI targets for the various home sizes, it was all based on a U value of 0.045. But if the code reverts to 0.056 again, none of that modeling is valid. So, without that change, the targets are all incorrect. So, there's two important changes are needed to confidently proceed with an ERI path. One is including an envelope backstop, and two is changing the baseline U factor to 0.045 in the code. Thanks for your time.
Next up, I have Larry Andrews. Whichever section you want, you don't have to go in the order I have them.
I got them
Okay.
according to yours. No. Yeah. So Edwin L. Andrews II, I go by Larry. Its code is 24-RE-015R406.2. And my comments is this is so far from the truth. The table is a big lie. Okay. And when you do the load calculations with the RightSoft programs, which I have $20,000 worth of RightSoft programs, it tells you that the usage is nearly the same because I have the program that when you plug in all the type of equipment and you can give 4 different systems, and at the end you hit a button and it tells me how much energy I'm going to use and what the cost is because I have all the cost figures plugged in there. And when you get done with that and you hit the button, the difference between it is within $50 for the whole year. Okay. We've got to the point that we're building the houses so much better than what we used to build them that it's almost pointless to what system you're using. Okay. And if we were to go to a radiant system, which we promote, it would even be less than that. What we're doing is we keep spending exponential amount of money, and the slice of energy savings we're getting is minuscule. And from all the design work that I've done in our Ray Cool company that we have, that's what the conclusion I came with is, if we want to get to these kind of savings that you guys really want to at the end, which our prototypes actually exceed right now, they exceeded those 10 years ago. And when we came to the conclusion is that the cost to do this does not represent the need, okay? It doesn't pencil anywhere in the next 100 years. I've got people that have spent $250,000 on a system to get where you guys want to get. And it will take probably the next 300 years for them to get their money back, okay? But they wanted the most efficient system they could get. So we sell them radiant cooling and radiant heating, and it blows you out of the water and it's comfortable. You guys are trying to sell them something that's going to be drafty, and any older person would never want to have a system like that in their house. They just wouldn't, because their blood flow is so low that they have a hard time keeping warm to begin with, let a bunch of air blowing on. Okay, thank you. Next one.
503.
Again, Edwin L. Andrews II. I go by Larry. This is 24-RE-19, residential section R503. Many installations in Eastern Washington, radiant heat and radiant floor baseboard, have AC done by high velocity systems. For AC to convert to heat pump, it's not possible for many applications because the coils on the high velocity system, there's not enough indoor coil capacity for the refrigerant in the heat pump application to get an ARI number for a match set. This has been verified in 2026. I had a customer, I tried to give him the pitch for a heat pump. He said, let's go for it. Let's switch it from an AC to a heat pump, okay? And the first thing I asked the customer is, how well is his roof insulated? Does he have roof dams? Because once you start heating it up here in the wintertime, then you get snow dams, and then they void their roofing warranties. So when it came back to us from the manufacturer that I could not put a heat pump in the high velocity system because the coil capacity isn't big enough to absorb all that refrigerant at one time in the heating cycle. And so the only thing that I'm able to put in there is to replace it with another AC. I can't even do what you guys want me to do because the factory says it won't work. And here you guys are trying to make us do things that aren't going to work. Let's see, what do we got? Okay. Eastern Washington in heat pump mode, the AC in the attic causes large ice dams. The other thing we've experienced, it wasn't businesses. We got called on a job up on the South Hill. The customer had huge ice dams because they put the furnace in the attic. It had an AC system up there. She didn't want an AC, the AC system went out. So then they put in an electric furnace. And if we would have put a heat pump, we would have had the same thing. Huge ice dams. You should have seen the ice dams. The ice dams were back 4 or 5 feet. And these were with R8 insulated ducts that we would have done. But the problem is that heat goes up, hits that snow, runs it down into the valleys and causes ice dams. So what did we do? They had a radiant system that somebody said was shot. We went in, checked the boiler, put in a new 95% boiler, and now she doesn't have any ice dams, and she still has air conditioning in the summer now.
Seconds.
Thank you.
.3.1.2.5.1.
I got R403.3.2.1. Is that right? Edwin L. Andrews II. Existing buildings should not apply on inner walls. Okay, so you guys all want to limit the amount of, you don't want to have any ducts using the building envelope. And I disagree with that on existing buildings. And here's why. We have a lot of two-story homes in our district. And what do? They take the return ducts. They took the return ducts up into the floor, and they're on the second floor, and they're right at the floor, okay? And that's wrong. That's wrong if you want to be efficient and if you want to be cool up on the second floor. What needs to be done is we need to take that return duct that's near the floor and run it up as high as we can on the wall, cut a grill in, and block the grill below. But this rule here won't allow me to do that. So here's what we gain. We gain a cooler house in the summertime, and we save energy in the wintertime because we're taking that heat from the second level and we're moving it down to the lower floor. I'm not saying to do this for new construction. What I'm saying to do is in the retrofit arena where we can do this and we're not on outside walls. We're on the inside of the building on an interior wall. We've already got a return register up on the second floor. We need to add that exemption, okay? Because we can save a lot of energy here and we can make a lot of people a lot more comfortable upstairs in the summertime. Okay, thank you. Now we got the next one. So I'm not a fan of what you put in there, okay? Because they have no experience. These people that are making these rules have no field experience, and it's a shame. They don't want to listen either. Edwin L. Andrews II, code R503.1.2.5.1, over. This doesn't allow radiant heat or radiant cooling, period, in this state, because it says in there that you have to have a ducted heat pump system to go in. And my business does not sell a ducted heat pump system a lot of the times. We want to sell you a radiant heated system if you're building a new home with radiant cooling if possible. Maybe we might put some ductless splits in for cooling, but we want radiant heating because of the comfort level of what a customer has. Plus, right off the top, a radiant heated system will save you 10% off your energy costs by just having it in. The reason why is delta T. You can't change physics. That's something our state and these idiots that I deal with a lot of times over here try to do. When you can make the ceiling cooler as the outside is, the heat transfer isn't as great. But when you got scorched air blowing around, guess what? The ceiling's the highest place. It's the hottest place. So you're transferring all that heat, mega bunches, to the outside because the delta T from the attic ceiling to the outside is much greater, okay? So radiant heat is very important. If you're thinking about getting to your 70% reduction goal, you're going to have to switch to radiant heat. I've already run the numbers. I know what it's going to take to do it. So that rule eliminates radiant heat and cooling. And I have a lot of money invested in a patent, close to $250,000. I have $2.5 million worth of prototypes out here. And we are not going to let you do this to our company and other radiant companies. So either you change your wording or you and I are going to be in federal court over this thing. And it's not going to be little dollars. It's going to be in the $100 million range. Okay. And so that's not right. It's not right for you guys to tell us what to do. Thank you.
Justin, Representative Ramel, did you have a point of order or?
Yeah, but just quick point of order, Mr. Chair. Just want to make sure we're enforcing a standard of communication here that includes not calling people idiots and not impugning the motives of the hardworking volunteers on the Technical Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Representative Ramel. I noted.
All right, next up in person, I have Dana Leroy. He left. Oh, he left? Yeah. All right. Next up, that's the end of our residential energy code registrants. We'll be going to our general energy code registrants. And the first up I have is David Camp.
I am David Camp, here on behalf of 350 Spokane to support the 2024 Energy Code as written. And please excuse my shorts. I've been wearing these clothes for a week since being evacuated from my home due to wildfires. I have no idea when my wife and I can return home. Wildfires are still closing in, and frankly, we're luckier than hundreds of our nearby neighbors who have no home to return to. Since the 1960s, experts have warned us to expect these fires due to our rising carbon emissions, largely from buildings. Here in Spokane, buildings are our largest emissions source, while they're second largest statewide. Please step up electrification. This is among the very cheapest, easiest ways to reduce the carbon emissions that are destroying us. First, please focus on energy efficiency. The easiest way to reduce a building's emissions from energy is to use less of it. Please require tighter envelopes and more energy efficient appliances. Second, incentivize replacement of old air conditioners with heat pumps that both cool the building in summer and heat it more cheaply in winter, cutting both costs and emissions. Third, please require all new buildings to be ready for electrical appliances with sockets ready to go and more capacity on electrical service panels. Let's not repeat the mistakes of the past. You commissioners have enormous power to reduce the emissions that cause disasters like these now devastating Eastern Washington. On behalf of 350 Spokane, please use that power to help reduce emissions. On a personal note, please remember as you leave the meeting today that the smoke you smell is coming from my neighborhood's flattened homes, from people who've lost everything. Those of you on the west side, when you get home this evening, please remember the thousands of us here in Eastern Washington who, thanks to carbon emissions, cannot go home for weeks, if at all. Thank you for your attention.
Next up online, I have Aaron Barnett. Aaron, you should be able to unmute now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks to the committee for the opportunity to testify today. I would like to talk about Proposal 209 and Proposal 019 sort of together, if that's okay. My testimony sort of covers both. I am primarily an HVAC designer for residential and commercial projects, including load modeling, heating and cooling equipment selection, and ventilation design. This work often brings me into contact with the Energy Code as we support clients in choosing HVAC and other strategies that comply with the code requirements. I also have an extensive background as a builder and as an HVAC installer on high-performance buildings and HVAC systems. Proposal 209 and Proposal 019, which require the replacement of failing air conditioning units with heat pumps. I support this. Several other people have tried to characterize this as a technology switch. It is not. Heat pumps and air conditioners are fundamentally the same thing, but heat pumps have a few more parts that basically allow them to run the refrigeration cycle in reverse. Those parts add very little cost to the hardware while offering significant savings in money, energy, and carbon emissions over time. Total installation costs are primarily driven by labor costs, not hardware costs. So requiring replacing AC units with heat pumps at the time of failure minimizes total cost by reducing the impact of labor costs on the total installation. And finally, today's heat pumps are state-of-the-art electric appliances and are much better than earlier generations. They're more efficient. They work in a wider variety of climates and are more efficient, including Eastern Washington. I'd also like to quickly take my last minute and speak in support of Proposal 035. The current code treats an 1,800 square foot starter home and a 4,000 square foot mansion as essentially the same thing. That discourages builders and developers from building smaller, more affordable homes, which our state desperately needs. In addition, as an energy modeler, I see every day the ways that larger homes are inherently more energy hungry than smaller ones. Even large homes that implement extensive energy saving measures still consume more total energy than smaller homes that are only built to the code minimum. This proposal recognizes and rewards the inherent benefits of builders and homeowners who choose to live in smaller spaces, and at the same time, it ensures that wealthier homeowners who choose to live in enormous homes must do their part to minimize the energy consumption of their choices. Thank you all very much.
Next up online, Colleen Anderson.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for all the work that you've put into this process. My name is Colleen Anderson. I am a co-founder and leader of 350 Yakima Climate Action, and I'm speaking today on behalf of myself and my organization. I would like to echo the comments made by David Camp with 350 Spokane. At 350 Yakima, we work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while advancing environmental justice. Clean energy benefits both our climate and our health. The American Lung Association reports that gas stoves and unvented gas fireplaces release pollutants directly into homes, sometimes reaching levels that can threaten health. Children and people in low-income and rural communities are especially vulnerable to these harmful indoor air pollutants. For this reason, we ask you to approve all proposals forwarded by the Technical Advisory Group and the MVPE Committee that continue to improve energy efficiency, with one exception. Proposal 24 GP 187, which weakens the Commercial Energy Code's on-site renewable energy requirements in Section C411. We ask the Council to retain the on-site renewable energy requirements. The legislature directed the Council to encourage greater use of renewable energy. Rolling back the 2021 standards would move us in the wrong direction. Also, remove the affordable housing exemption. Installing solar during construction is the most cost-effective way to reduce utility bills over the life of a building. Affordable housing residents deserve the same opportunity to benefit from lower energy costs and efficient, low emission, and healthy homes. This is also an environmental justice issue. Also, revise the roof slope exemption. The current language could unnecessarily limit practical rooftop solar projects, even though solar panels installed on pitched roofs are often the most cost-effective option. If these changes cannot be made, we urge the Council to adopt the integrated draft for Section C411 rather than a version that rolls back on-site renewable energy requirements. Thank you for your consideration.
All right, next up in person, Larry Luton.
Good afternoon. I'm the other Larry in the room, and I will not be insulting or threatening you. My name is Larry Luton. I've lived in Spokane for over 40 years. Thank you for having a hearing in Spokane and for giving me the opportunity to comment. Like David Camp, I'm a board member of and am speaking for 350 Spokane. We have over 2,400 people on our email list. 350 Spokane is also a member of 350 Washington, which is composed of 11 local 350.org affiliated groups. We also work with other environmental groups on the east and west sides of the state. For example, the Spokane Environmental Policy Coalition and Climate Solutions, to promote policies and programs that help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and further climate justice. Strong energy codes are essential to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution from buildings. We need to discourage the use of fossil fuels. Building efficient, low-emission buildings today protects owners and renters from future costs related to the impacts of climate heating. People who suffer the most from pollution, heat, and increased temperatures are often those who have the least means to protect themselves and have also contributed the least to climate change. We need our buildings to be resilient to protect workers and tenants from our hotter and smokier summers. You could and should do more than is proposed today. Please don't do less. We are not going to get out of this climate mess by focusing on costs. I urge you to take every step you can to reduce the use of fossil fuels in buildings. Thank you.
Next up, I have Kelly Fukai. Kelly, I did have you registered for residential and commercial. You just need.
Just speak generally. Comments. Thank you. Good afternoon. We've made it to the afternoon. My name is Kelly Fukai. I am a Spokane resident of 50 years, and I am the CEO of the Northwest Gas Association, representing the region's investor-owned gas utilities, gas transmission pipeline companies, service providers, and infrastructure developers in Canada and the Pacific Northwest. I want to begin by saying that the Northwest Gas Association has consistently supported energy efficiency as a primary resource in addressing our energy needs, and our members have participated in Washington's code development process for many years because we believe that thoughtful collaboration involving technical experts and infrastructure deployers produces better outcomes for people. Today, we will submit some substantive written comments addressing the proposals that we support and several proposals that we believe need to be revisited based on this initial CR 102 proposal. Today, I'm going to focus my comments on a fundamental procedural issue that should be addressed before the council moves forward. And depending upon how that issue is resolved, we may need to revise our comments. Washington's rulemaking process is built on a simple principle that the public should have the opportunity to review the comment on the proposal that the council is actually considering. Unfortunately, that is not what is occurring right now. As we understand it, when the CR 102 was issued, there are continued portions of the energy codes that are still under development. And since then, the technical working group has continued to revise provisions that affect compliance pathways, technical requirements, implementation details, and costs, as you've heard throughout testimony today. That places stakeholders in an impossible position. Businesses cannot fully evaluate the compliance costs for requirements that have not been finalized. Builders cannot fully understand the construction impacts when proposals continue to change. And utilities, manufacturers, our labor partners, local governments, and consumers here cannot provide the meaningful comments on provisions that they've not had a fair opportunity to review. Regardless of where anyone stands on electrification, natural gas, or any individual proposal, I believe that we can all agree that this council should make decisions based on complete proposal and a complete public record. For that reason, Northwest Gas Association joins with a coalition of other interested parties in respectfully requesting that the council withdraw the current CR 102, allowed the technical working group to complete the important work and publish the complete proposal and provide a new public comment period before moving forward to adoption. The importance of getting this process right is magnified by the fact that these decisions do not occur in a vacuum. The Pacific Northwest is facing a significant energy resource adequacy challenge. Multiple studies have highlighted the regional shortage that's driven by electrification demands outpacing forecasts and the difficulty and costs associated with building the energy infrastructure at the scale needed to meet the demand. Regional planners and utilities are laser focused on maintaining reliability, especially during winter peak demand periods when the energy use is highest and the system stress is greatest. As this council evaluates future code requirements, we encourage consideration not only of the annual energy consumption, but also of the winter peak demand, grid reliability, customer affordability, and long-term resilience. That broader perspective is why the Northwest Gas Association believes that hybrid energy systems deserve greater recognition within the code. Hybrid systems combine high-efficiency electric heat pumps and high-efficiency natural gas heating. They allow the heat pumps to serve customers during moderate temperatures while retaining the ability to rely on another energy source during those coldest days, essentially serving as a capacity resource for the electric grid. The future of Northwest energy systems should not be framed as choosing electricity or natural gas. It should be about using all available tools to reduce emissions, maintain affordability, enhance resiliency, and support reliability. Hybrid solutions help achieve those objectives simultaneously. They provide flexibility for consumers, they help manage peak demand, and they recognize the reality that the reliable, affordable energy future will require integrated and diverse energy systems, not one-size-fits-all approaches. As I said, we will be submitting formal comments, more written substantive comments on specific elements of the code, but really appreciate your time and your being here today. Thank you so much.
Next up in person, Tyler Tamush.
Hey, good afternoon, Chair, members of the council. Thank you for Representative Suzanne Schmidt for being here as well. My name is Tyler Tamush. I'm the Government Affairs Manager for the Spokane Home Builders Association. So the Home Builders Association supports practical energy efficiency. However, new energy requirements must also be affordable to home buyers. A home cannot be considered affordable if the code adds thousands of dollars in upfront costs for features that provide very little savings to the homeowner. Today, the Home Builders Association has four main recommendations. First, please preserve the energy rating index pathway in sections R401.2 and R408. The ERI pathway gives builders flexibility. Instead of requiring every home to follow exact same checklist, it allows builders to meet an overall energy efficiency, targeting using the materials, equipment, and design that work best for each home. According to BIW, in their study, this pathway could reduce construction costs by approximately $4,300 on an average new home. We believe this is a practical way to improve efficiency while controlling costs. Second, please adopt option C in table R406.31. Option C better recognizes the climate conditions in Eastern Washington and creates a more gradual system for energy requirements based on home size. Without this option, adding a relatively small amount of square footage could push a home into a new category and trigger additional expensive requirements. Option C helps avoid those sudden cost increases. Third, please keep HRV and ERV ventilation systems optional. These systems can be useful in certain homes, but they should not be required in every home. BIW estimates that this mandate would add approximately $1,100 to the cost of a home. The estimated energy savings are only about $17 a year, with a payback period of more than 43 years. This is not a reasonable mandatory investment for a new homeowner. Fourth, please reject the electric readiness requirement. A family that chooses natural gas appliances should not also be required to pay for wiring, circuits, and electrical panel capacity for appliances they may never use. It's also been estimated this would add approximately $946 without providing any immediate energy savings. Finally, the code should treat gas and electricity fairly. The Home Builders Association is not asking the council to favor one energy source over another. We are simply asking for equal treatment and for homes to be judged by their actual energy performance. So in summary, please preserve ERA pathway, adopt option C, keep HRV and ERV systems optional, reject unnecessary electric readiness costs, and protect energy choice. Washington can improve energy efficiency without making homeownership less attainable. Thank you.
All right, next up online, Dylan Plummer.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Chair and members of the State Building Code Council, thank you so much for this opportunity to testify. I'm going to testify on two topics, so I might go slightly over 3 minutes if that's okay, but I'll try to be very clear when I change to another topic. My name is Dylan Plummer, and I'm the Deputy Director of Sierra Club's Clean Heat Campaign. I'm here to testify today on behalf of our 81,000 members and supporters in Washington State, to voice our support for the proposed residential and commercial building energy code updates being considered by the State Building Code Council. These updates are critical for Washington to meet its climate and energy efficiency goals. These proposals have broad support across the state, and there's been an outpouring of advocacy with thousands of comments being submitted supporting these updates in just the past few weeks. As climate-driven wildfires burn across the region and extreme heat that is unprecedented scorches Washington, these codes are more important than ever to help us reduce emissions, fight climate change, and build community resiliency. Specifically, the Sierra Club is strongly supportive of the proposed air conditioner to heat pump replacement standards that Sierra Club submitted last year for residential buildings and that Energy 350 submitted for commercial buildings. These code changes will drive electrification of existing homes and buildings at a time with the highest cost effectiveness when a building is replacing an existing central air conditioner or installing a new unit. In 2024, Washington signed on to the Northeast States for Coordinated Air Use Management NESCOM multi-state commitment to ensure that highly efficient heat pumps make up at least 65% of new HVAC and water heating sales by 2030 and 90% by 2040. The proposals being considered will help us meet that commitment, increase efficiency, reduce emissions, and protect clean air. As the state experiences climate-driven extreme heat events with greater frequency, we expect adoption of central air conditioning in existing homes and businesses to rise dramatically. These codes will ensure that Washingtonians are investing in the highest efficiency appliances while helping to offset their use of fossil fuels for heating. In light of the significant benefits of this proposal for affordability, energy efficiency, and emissions reduction, we strongly encourage you to approve the codes. Additionally, I would like to speak to R406.6 on the WSEC. So this is a separate topic. I just want to voice Sierra Club's support for the solar and renewable amendments being put forward by Shift Zero and WSEC, including adjusting the values of the number of additional energy efficiency credits that can be earned by solar and renewables. Renewables are currently overly favored in the credit table in the CR 102, which could lead to a loss of efficiency in other parts of the building. We support the recommendation by Shift Zero and WSEC to reduce the total maximum available credits for the renewable energy option by 0.5 credits. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Next up, in person, Darren Watkins.
Greetings all, Darren Watkins with the Spokane Realtors, and I served in the TAG group here for residential for about 2 years. And then, believe it or not, in our recent conversation with the governor, he asked us to come in today and specifically testify to a new issue that's emerged that I want to bring to your attention. Suddenly, we've become aware that these, if you implement them as they stand, these will become amongst the most discriminatory and unfair practices for a large group of people and could be disastrous to Spokane. And what I'm talking about is the suddenly new 1,000 families or so that we have that are homeless due to the Spokane complex fires. And the reason why this is because under these new rules, it makes a dramatic change to something we gets rid of the longstanding practice and eliminates the like-for-like replacement rule. So essentially what happens is now when that family wants to come back and rebuild, they cannot rebuild what they had. In fact, the problem is the cost estimates are about $50,000 more, and your insurance policy doesn't cover that. So now think about that. Not only can you not go home until the home is built, you can't go back to your home anymore. And if you could, it's $50,000 to move in. I don't know how you all are doing. I think David could probably speak to what it's like to suddenly your home is no longer accessible. That's a difficult thing to face. And now we're going to pile this on top of that. The second part of this is many of these people are not going to come back. Our office has already been contacted by over 2,000 people and families that have said, just sell my lot. I'm moving. And to the person we ask where they're going to Idaho. This is a trend we've seen growing for the last 10 years. because there is an explosion of building across the border where you can build, not so much here. By comparison, just last year alone, Kootenai County issued 1,750 housing permits for single-family housing. A comparable population group is the city of Spokane. They issued 146. It's happening already, and you're just going to exacerbate it. So here's the issue. There are some easy fixes. There's some easy fixes that you should consider here. Among them would be rolling back these like-for-like provisions. A specific listing of those are shown in the letter that we just got from Washington Realtors to your organization. I can give them to you if you want. Or if that's too much, consider what some recent legislation proposed was to allow residents specific to this disaster to rebuild, rolling back to, say, the 2015 standards. So that you have some stake in the game of increasing their efficiencies, but at the same time, allowing these folks to be able to rebuild their homes. The third option is to vest the owners there in the current standards so that they aren't impacted by the new code changes that should come online within months. And then finally, the other one is considering what Representative Schmidt has said, perhaps we should give this a year. So any of these combination of factors within the scope of this unique population could not only benefit those families the most that are at the worst possible moment, but at the same time, save Spokane. We're about to lose 1,000 families. That's not an easy number to think about. And at the same time, give folks like David, who we applaud for his efforts to reducing emissions, but give him a neighborhood to go back home to. Thank you.
Next up online, Kara Odegaard.
I'm here.
Oh, thank you.
First, well, my name's Kara Odegaard, and I appreciate you allowing us to come and speak today, especially being here in Spokane. From what I can tell, your job is a very difficult one. You're being asked to put together code that balances climate commitments that Washington State has with affordability of building new homes. There's another piece here around the affordability of the long-term operations of these homes. I, in a previous life, for the most part of a decade, sold residential real estate. My clients were mostly resale clients, so I wasn't working so much with new construction, and I saw firsthand the costs that my clients incurred from having to from the decisions that were made at the time of construction. Sometimes those decisions were made to reduce cost. Sometimes they were made because the technology didn't exist at the time. I am here today to ask you to please consider operational costs for people when you're buying a home on resale. You don't have the choice of having created energy efficiency or the type of, you don't always have the choice of the type of furnace, and it's very expensive to retrofit. We know that the energy transition is happening. We know that there are cleaner and more efficient ways to heat and cool your home. I have a heat pump. I've had one for the last 4 years. It works. It's not drafty. The heat is warm. And I think that it's very important now that we're considering rebuilding in Spokane that we are not locking in old technology and creating higher costs operational over the life of the building. With that, please support strong energy codes for Washington State. Thank you.
Next up in person, Christian Engel.
Angel.
Sorry.
No worries. Kirsten Angel. Thanks for this opportunity to speak. Having survived this past weekend, I'm here to state the obvious. We can't afford not to pass the full suite of commercial and residential proposals recommended by the Energy Code Technical Advisory Group and NVPE Committee.
As you may know, wildfires have already burned over 2.6 million acres as the region suffers through its worst wildfire season. According to Spokane County Climate Risk Assessment, we're in our 4th year of drought with half of the normal snowpack and record low fuel moisture levels. 600 homes have turned to ash and 60,000 people in Spokane were displaced, many of them still in that state as I speak. Urban conflagrations like this one will continue to get worse and worse as climate change presses on. As you also probably know, the buildings and construction sector is responsible for about 42% of global greenhouse gas emissions. We need to lead as a state, especially when federal leadership is so willfully ignorant. We are living in unprecedented times, and they require us to act responsibly, especially if we are in a seat of decision-making power like you are. We need to do everything within our power to slow the impacts of climate crisis on our current and future populations. We need to build efficient, safe, and low emissions buildings now. Washington cannot continue to rely on fossil fuels, including those used in buildings. Status quo building codes to significantly contribute to the very tragedies we are at this moment enduring. Continue to build on the good work that has been done and keep Washington leading on the path to a cleaner, more affordable, and energy efficient future. Earlier, Mr. Andrews commented about the enormous cost of these changes to the code. What about the enormous cost of losing your home to fire overnight? Change is hard for everyone, but if we don't change our ways, we're being irresponsible. Thank you.
Next up in person, Adam Gebauer.
Good afternoon, Chair and State Building Code Council. My name is Adam Glauer. I'm speaking on behalf of the Lands Council. I'm their Public Lands Program Director, and I'm speaking in support of proposals for energy codes, particularly residential proposal 019 and commercial proposal 209. These proposals encourage certain failed air conditioner systems, replacing these with heat pumps at the most practical and cost-effective times, when the existing equipment has already reached the end of its life. Heat pumps provide both efficient heating and cooling, reducing climate pollution, improve air quality, and help communities better withstand hotter summers and wildfire smoke. As we all know, this is particularly important now. Many low-income families do not have access to cooling in their homes, and it's pretty impractical and unsafe to open their windows at this time. We encourage thoughtful implementation to ensure replacement heat pump systems are appropriately designed for each building so they can effectively meet the heating and cooling needs of the space. With proper sizing and installation, proportional proposals 019 and 209 will reduce long-term energy costs, improve building performance, and help Washington transition to a cleaner, healthier future. Thank you for your consideration.
Next up online, I have Ken Zarinsky.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment. My name is Kenneth Zarinsky, and I reside in the city of Tacoma, and I'm a retired physician and a father. And I'd like to express my support for implementation of all of the proposals of the 2024 Washington State Energy Codes that have been recommended by the technical advisory groups and the MVPE committee. My daughter suffers from asthma, as do many other children and adults in Washington. Asthma is aggravated by air pollution. Both outdoor and indoor air pollution are caused by the combustion of fossil fuels for heating and cooking in buildings. Air pollution has been shown to cause severe health problems, including asthma, other respiratory diseases, cardiovascular disease, stroke, autism, cancer, and premature death. The Energy Code proposals that promote electric readiness in buildings and the proposals that promote the switch from air conditioning to heat pumps will reduce air pollution by facilitating the transmission from heating and cooking with fossil fuels to heating and cooking with cleaner electric appliances. In summary, I strongly suggest that the members of the State Building Code Council adopt all the recommended proposals, since these proposals will improve the health of Washingtonians. I thank you for your time listening to my comment.
Next up, I have Nick Manning online.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon, Chair Bayreuther and members of the council. My name is Nick Manning, here representing the Washington State Department of Commerce. The Department of Commerce would like to speak in support of the full package of proposals that have been voted forward by the Technical Advisory Group to include in the 2024 Washington State Energy Code for both commercial and residential structures. We write that these proposals reflect necessary changes for the 2024 Commercial and Residential Energy Code to make forward progress in meeting the requirements of RCW 1927A 160 and put the state on a path towards meeting our greenhouse gas emissions limits. These proposals align with the recommendations of the most recent state energy strategy for the building sector, published by Commerce as required by law. In 2021, the analytical framework for the state energy strategy represents a comprehensive assessment of the options for achieving the state's mandated emissions limits, which decrease steeply over the next several years. And that modeling finds that buildings responsible for 26% of the state's current emissions require a sustained market transformation approach that combines electric-ready buildings with deep levels of efficiency for new and existing buildings and smart building demand management. Especially as peak demand exacerbates in both the summer and winter, it's critical for new construction to be enabled as a grid asset rather than a drain. Therefore, this energy code package of efficiency improvements for new residential and commercial buildings represents a critical cornerstone to achieving statutory limits. The move towards codes which encourage heat pump technologies also makes efficiency and lifetime savings sense. We would like to express specific support for proposals 24 GP1 267, 270 on the commercial side, and then on the residential side, 24 RE 019 and 018, which strongly encourage the replacement of HVAC and water heating equipment with heat pumps when these systems reach the end of their operational life. Study shows that upfront costs for heat pumps may have a premium over other equipment, but the long-term benefits of reduced energy costs coupled with the added benefit of providing air conditioning makes heat pumps a cost-effective investment for consumers. This approach ensures that building owners and tenants maximize the lifespan of their appliances and energy savings while preventing the perpetuation of inefficient technologies, making it easier and more cost-effective for the state to achieve its statutory energy efficiency goals, for building owners and households to meet building performance target mandates, and to build flexible capacity into the grid. And finally, heat pumps contribute to climate resilience and can play a vital role in safeguarding buildings and communities from the impacts of events like wildfire smoke and extreme heat. So to conclude, we support the package of proposals approved by the Energy Tag and put forward to the council for comment. Thank you again for the chance to provide our support for the full package of proposals, and we would be very happy to answer any follow-up questions if anyone would like to reach out. Thank you so much.
Next up, I have Taylor Burtail in person.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taylor Burtell. I am the Climate Justice Program Director at the Lands Council, and I'm speaking on behalf. I would like to encourage the State Building Code Council to pass all the proposals that came with the 2024 Energy Code, commercial and residential, that were forwarded by the Technical Advisory Groups and the MVPE Committee, which together improve energy efficiency and promote the use of clean renewable energy. I grew up in Spokane, born and raised, although I'm a member of the Grovont community nation from Fort Belknap, Montana. And I've attended public school all the way, Madison, Gary, graduated North Central High School. I'm proud of what Washington has done when it comes to climate, and I would hope that the leaderships in these moments are ensuring that my generation has a pathway to continuing to be great in this nation when it comes to climate and environmentalism. And because it's my generation next. And so I would like to hope that I can have a path forward that is looking towards sustainability, being healthy, and all the fun stuff, right? And so I believe that ensuring we are looking towards the future and considering newer, more modern technology. I go to the gas pump right now, and so I don't know how I would like to see or understand what relying on old technology and methods of energy are in comparison to what solar or more energy efficient technologies can have. I don't anticipate any of the older technologies to get any cheaper anyways. And so that's a consideration to take in. I'm really off script right here because everybody said all the cool stuff, all the big words, but ultimately I want to continue to be a big number, a number leading in the nation when it comes to taking care of our youth, taking care of our elderly. And that includes clean air. That includes ensuring that we can be affordable, actually affordable. And yeah, that's me. Thank you. And I appreciate y'all.
Next up, I have online Chris Covert-Bolds. Chris, you should have the ability to unmute now. If you're with us, go ahead and unmute.
Unmuting. There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Great. Yeah, Chris Covert-Bolds. I'm a family doctor in Seattle, representing Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility, speaking strongly in favor of the full suite of these energy code proposals. We represent over 7,500 health professionals in the state. In addition to everything you've heard about gas appliances and heat, air pollutants being bad for people's health, lungs, heart, and even cancer risk. Low-income communities have especially higher risk of death from particle pollution. We know these gas, heat, and appliances cause fires and explosions. And with Washington State overdue for an earthquake, that's an especial risk. We know about 12.7% of U.S. childhood asthma cases are attributed to gas stoves. So please pass the full suite of these proposals for the energy code. Thank you very much.
I have online Elizabeth Torsky.
Thank you. This is Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas, speaking to residential energy provisions 018 and 019. 018 is the electric readiness proposal. I would echo what other folks have said, and I won't belabor my time, but the absence of this proposal would by no means prevent anyone from installing a heat pump. But the contrary, the inclusion of this proposal penalizes those who are choosing an alternative fuel source. I would encourage the council to not adopt provision 018. 019 similarly would require the installation of a heat pump instead of AC in residential homes. Again, the absence of this provision would by no means prevent a homeowner from replacing their equipment with a heat pump, but the inclusion will prevent them from doing technology choices that may be urgently needed, they may be timely, they may be costly. So I would encourage the council to oppose provision 019. I would also like to speak to residential provision 015. This provision proposes an energy equalization credit table. In that table, there are 4 system types, but 5 system types. System type 2 and system type 4, very similar in that they're both heat pumps. System type 2, though, uses supplemental heating provided by a separate fuel source. System type 4 is the supplemental heat is provided by electric resistance that's usually integrated into the heat pump. These two technologies are so very, very similar, and yet the credits are so different. And I would recommend the council consider that the credits for these two system types be the same. Most of the time, these systems are going to operate identically. It's only in peak periods or when temperatures drop below what a heat pump can efficiently run at, where supplemental heat would be needed. And the direct use of natural gas versus electric resistance is far more efficient. So I'd encourage the council to make these two system types, system type 2 and system type 4, have the same credit values in the equalization credit table. Thank you.
All right, that's the end of our registered testifiers. I'm gonna run back and see if we've missed anybody. If they're here, we can call them. Is Dana Leroy available in person or online? Not seeing them with their hands up. Tom Balderston. Seeing any new hands up? Jamie McKay. Lucas Witkowski. All right, now we'll open it up to the folks who have not registered to testify. I'd ask anybody who's in person with us to they'll get the preference on this one, then we'll go to the next one.
Perfect. And I will be brief. I know we've covered a lot of this ground. My name is Jason Hudson, representing the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 77. I'm not going to speak on specific proposed provisions of the code today, just two general comments on the code. First, I think we would advocate the importance of maintaining a technology neutral code when it comes to infrastructure. Technology neutrality allows Washingtonians the ability to balance all of these competing factors, energy efficiency, our clean energy goals, cost effectiveness, reliability, and most importantly, I think right now, at least feels so in this community, resiliency. I live here in Spokane. It's been a rough week. And I think making sure that we continue to maintain a building code that allows our communities to be resilient in the face of threats, certainly not limited to wildfire, but like the wildfires, is incredibly important. And maintaining technology neutrality maximizes that resiliency by allowing people to diversify their energy sources and build to fit a variety of different needs. I think it's really important, two provisions in here that already get at this idea. C406.3.9, the thermal energy networks. I would just, draw to the language that's already in there. The basis for that proposal specifically says that it provides significant benefits to the grid by diversifying the load and providing fuel source flexibility. Additionally, R404.5, the electrification readiness, similar, and this is sprinkled throughout the proposals, but a similar idea. It ensures necessary infrastructure is in place to avoid costly future retrofits and enable demand flexibility. I think these principles work in all directions. We need to make sure that our code remains technology neutral and that the infrastructure is in place to allow people the choice to utilize the systems and the methods that balance all of those factors for their specific application. And we would support the reissuing of the 102 with a new public comment period because we also believe that the technical working group continuing to develop, revise, and add technical provisions throughout this process has made it incredibly difficult to provide specific feedback on the proposals and would support that request that's been made multiple times already. Thank you.
All righty, is there anybody else in person here who would like to deliver some testimony?
Can I give one final general comment for 3 minutes? I want to explain some of my comments from the past here. I sat on the energy tag for more than a year and a half, probably almost 2 years. And when you tell a person in the tag that it will not work, and then it gets pushed through and it still won't work, and you can't make it work when it doesn't have the physics to do it. And it becomes very frustrating at times, especially when you see some of these get pushed through into law. And that's some of my frustrations here lately. But the other frustrations I have in this city is we are kind of like an oasis here in Eastern Washington. And there's been a move in the city of Spokane to cut back on watering, and because we're dry. But you got to remember, we're blessed with 1 billion gallons of water running through us every day, 24/7, 365 days a year. Okay. And we need to use that water in the summertime to do the irrigating, to keep things greener than what they have been. It's evident of what's just recently happened. Okay. And what happened here in this area most likely was caused by arsons. And that's what they've come up with so far. But it's still glaring what could happen to us again. And if we don't use our resources that we have available to us, we're going to have it happen again and again and again. And this is an example. We had a person talk about 1960. I've lived here since 1958. We never had these problems years ago, and we had the heat that we have now. In the 70s, it was hotter than hot. But you know what we had in the 70s? We had people sitting all over the place. When they seen the first bit of smoke come out, we had people dispatched there. We don't have that anymore, and that's a state policy that's going on. By the time the satellite sees it, it's already 3 or 4 blocks gone. And when you got wind like we have, it's too late. Okay. Our let it burn policies in this state need to change, and they need to change now, or we're not going to have any more timber here in this state. We're going to have much more rural fires, and we need to get a group. And I even talked about this in the newspaper. We need to get a group of capable airplanes like C-5As that can hold 250,000 gallons and dump on these fires. 500-gallon buckets don't do any good. But when you can dump 250,000 gallons on a fire, you're going to do some good. And that's what really needs to happen in our area. We need to hit it quick and have overwhelming force to do it with. And we haven't been doing that. And we're going to continue to have the problems because we're using the satellites to see what's happening. And by then it's out of control. Thank you.
All right. Moving to those that didn't register but have their hands up, I have first Patrick Hanks. Patrick, if you're with us, you can unmute now.
I think that was an error. I wasn't intending to testify.
Okay. You have your hand up. Yes. Next, then, I have CJ Brockway. Oh, sorry, I didn't give you. CJ's hand went down. Next up, Yanni Sarias.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the council. My name is Yanni Psarias. I serve as Manager of State Government Affairs for the Coalition for Renewable Natural Gas. The RNG Coalition is the trade association for the renewable natural gas industry in North America. We advocate for the sustainable development, deployment, and use of renewable natural gas produced from organic waste so that present and future generations have access to clean fuel, heat, and energy. We're commenting on Proposal 24G1-181. The RNG Coalition opposes the proposal as currently written, specifically the renewable fuel definition in Section C202 and the requirements in Sections C C411.2.1 and C411.2.2. Our first concern is the requirement in section C202 that renewable fuels derived from biogas and biomass meet the Greenie certification. Greenie can be one way to verify renewable fuel, but it should not be the only way. Recent changes to that private standard that are currently being debated could exclude legitimate RNG projects, even when their fuel and environmental attributes can be independently verified. For example, in other jurisdiction, Oregon Department of Environmental Quality is considering a third-party verification for projects that will no longer be able to obtain Greenie certification. This is a result to a current proposed change to Greenie, and it is our belief that the Building Council should consider a similar pathway focused on verifying the renewable fuel ownership and transfer of its attributes, there's plenty of other systems that can do that. Our second concern is the proposal's treatment of book and claim transactions, which recognizes renewable fuels credited to a building in section C411. While in the same section, it also prohibits unbundled renewable thermal certificates. These provisions appear inconsistent. In the same section, it also requires the source of renewable fuel to be located within the Western Interconnection. The Western Interconnection is an electricity grid boundary, not a natural gas pipeline. So applying it to RNG could exclude projects connected to the same interstate pipeline system serving Washington, simply because the project is located outside of an unrelated electric grid region. RNG is fungible, very similar and molecularly similar to fossil natural gas. Once it enters a common carrier pipeline, its physical molecules can no longer be traced to one building. So book and claim allows the renewable attributes to be tracked and transferred separately. Prohibiting that approach or imposing an electricity-based geographic restriction would unnecessarily limit RNG available to buildings within Washington. So we respectfully ask the council to consider these comments. We'll be submitting full written comments based on this, and thank you for your consideration.
Online, Jason Hewitt.
Yes, thank you for hearing me. Sorry, I was about 5 minutes late from getting my stuff in, but I appreciate it. I'm Jason Hewitt. I'm with the Washington State Association of Plumbers, Pipe Fitters, HVAC Service, Sprinkler Fitters, Gas Distribution and Pipeline. We've got about just shy of 10,000 members in Washington State, and currently have many that have been affected by the fires over there in Spokane, throughout the state, but have also lost their houses over there. One of the things, I've got a couple items in the definition section of the commercial, and then just a couple general comments. One of the items is the biomass definition, and I don't know that I completely understand the reason for the change, but the change was basically took out the opportunity to be able to use wood and wood products as renewable fuels, and that is something I've seen and have worked with groups that is a perfect way to deal with fuel management in the forestry division, be able to remove that waste and be able to utilize it to make energy. And with the challenges with the state currently, we already have challenges with having enough energy and what that's going to look like in the future. I think that's something that would be a potential that would be, I think it's irresponsible to get rid of that option. Going to the energy storage systems and some of the talking about the physical renewable energy power purchase agreements, just where they reference electrical storage, I think is being a little too prescriptive. I think we need to open that up because there may be energy sources that come about in the future that we don't know, and that will disallow any of that as we go along, right? For me, it's again, it's a little too restrictive. We've run into issues in other areas where laws are a little too restrictive, and it prevents a lot of issue. They're dealing with it over there in Douglas County PUD with their hydrogen fueling station over there, that they can't get the proper stuff in there, and having a lot of challenges to be able to do that. And it's another source to be able to provide energy. Let's see. I still am concerned about the overall with both codes issues with taking away and restricting energy choice, especially when it comes to affordability and reliability. And then a lot of the things is the payback stuff with some of the homes and the homeowners. Anybody that does any kind of investment, if you tell me that it's going to take 44 years to get back what I've paid, it's not an investment that anybody typically makes. Those are tough ones to swallow. It's very, very difficult for that. So I have we have real issues with those. And then it's just, like I said, energy as a whole. I think we need to look at as a whole being able to figure out, yes, I know that the energy efficiencies will help. However, I don't think they are changing as fast to be able to offset where or the demand that energy has, and being able to look at those different sources of energy and generation. So thank you very much for taking me.
Online, Dwayne Johnlin. Dwayne, you should be able to unmute yourself. I will come back to Dwayne. Next up, I have Lisa Rosno.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Rosno. Many thanks to the council for facilitating this public comment process and the hard work and dedication required to provide it. I'm an owner of the company Evergreen Technology Consulting and the director of our Energy Code Services division. ETC provides technical support and training and manages online compliance documentation resources for the commercial provisions of the Washington State Energy Code. In addition, I'm a former voting member of the Technical Advisory Group for the 2015, 2018, 2021, and 2024 Commercial Energy Code. As a part of my job, each code cycle, I conduct a section-by-section crosswalk between the former code and the new code to identify where all the substantive changes are, so we know what to include in future trainings and our technical support resources. I also back-check the CR 102 with code change proposals evaluated by and approved by the TAG, first for my own proposals, and then those of other proponents as time allows, to confirm that the TAG-approved proposal language is included in the CR 102. Even under optimal conditions, this is a substantive undertaking. Conducting this for a large and complex document is a challenging endeavor within the short 6-week window allowed by the State Building Code Council. Through my review of this code, I have identified 2 key issues in this process. Number 1, I have identified several errors in the document, either with regards to clear description of code intent, completion of code requirement language, or language from TAG-approved code change proposals that have not been incorporated. This is to be expected in such a complex document. However, the process of notifying the State Building Code Council about the code language issues that the industry stakeholders observe is onerous. There is also a substantial issue, which I submitted in a public comment, with regards to the manner in which code language changes are identified in the CR 102. In a nutshell, in a traditionally marked amendment, a reader can rely on 2 signals. Struck means something's removed, underlined means that it's been added or modified. In the CR 102, these 2 signals are unreliable in 2 opposing ways. I found language that has been struck that was merely moved and relocated to another area and shown as fully underlined, so you really can't sort out what has been changed. I've noticed it as well as other items where it wasn't even moved, but that was the way it was presented. Because of these failure modes in the same document, a reviewer cannot confidently infer proposed modifications. The only reliable way to determine what the WSEC draft contains is how it differs from the adopted code. Why does this matter? Indication of language modifications is the mechanism by which the public and affected industries identify what a proposed code would change, so they can evaluate cost and energy impacts and comment meaningfully within the rulemaking window. Without a reliable method of identifying modifications in the code, the burden of determining what document contains shifts entirely onto each reviewer. This makes it likely that modifications to the code, including increases in stringency and cost consequences, will go unnoticed during the public review process. I've been listening to the commentary of many industry stakeholders who've expressed concern that the information in the CR 102 is not complete. Much work was required after the publication of the CR 102 that's been submitted as public comment. The Energy Code is a very complex document that has many interactive effects. It takes time for issues to come to light during review and to develop solutions. Further technical analysis of the resulting revised code is warranted. I encourage the State Building Code Council to consider initiating a follow-up technical analysis of the CR 102 after all public comments have been incorporated, either by reconvening the tag or some other entity qualified to provide thorough and meaningful technical review and recommendations. I recognize that the process of creating a new edition of this code is a challenging endeavor for staff. I applaud the efforts of the State Building Code Council, and I'm empathetic to the difficulty. Affected stakeholders wish to assist the State Building Code Council.
You need to wrap up, please.
Lisa, can you do that in one more sentence? Next up, I have CJ Brockway.
Thank you. I spoke on Wednesday on behalf of architects and lighting designers in support of the integrated draft lighting power density values and against the code change proposal 24 CP1 234. But there was a rebuttal after I spoke that I would like to respond to. I appreciate the additional time today. One point of clarity, the 234 code change proposal brief states a 10% reduction, except for those with healthcare uses, correctional uses, and facilities for the visual impaired. Again, this has to do with lighting power density. These spaces, however, are actually still being shown as being reduced in the proposed list. Also, there are spaces with lighting power densities that are being reduced by 20% or more. So perhaps the brief that described this at being at 10% was in error. However, I actually had a call with Michael Meyer with the PNNL, who was the proposer of this code change, about his rationale. And I also wanted to learn a little bit more about the ASHRAE subcommittee that comes up with a lot of the values. And I believe that Michael proposed these trying to be 10% below ASHRAE. I don't know this to be a fact, and I would love it if he would be able to speak to it specifically. I just talked to him on Monday. But unfortunately, some of the levels are still problematic, and that's consistent with the hodgepodge history that Washington State has with our LPD adjustment process. I was on the tag for a couple terms, and so I was able to see how that worked. But specifically, in fact, the whole reason why I'm on this call today is because I need to have airport concourses added to the list of spaces that are exempted. Many parties with visual impairment are present in the airport, and the integrated draft had it at 0.49 watts per square foot. This value, the value for airport concourses, was lower in prior code cycles, and then it was raised to 0.49 because they found that it wasn't going to be sufficient. Also, there are very few airports in Washington State, so there hasn't been a specific scrutiny in this category. I will say that nationally, the Illuminating Engineering Society is putting out a new recommended practice document. The difference between 0.4 and 0.49 is about 3,000 watts per concourse. That's about the same as a residential dryer breaker. Lighting doesn't consume much, but sometimes we need specific fixtures that have specific glare control. And the architect in the port, we don't think we're going to be able to do visually comfortable design at 0.4 watts per square foot. We hope we're going to make 0.49, even though shopping malls get 0.51. I am about out of time, and I just want to remind you that lighting is important because it contributes to your health and well-being and has a very strong visual impact. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, CJ. Next up, calling back for Dwayne Johnlin. If you're with us, go ahead and unmute.
Yes, you got me now.
Yes, sir.
This is Dwayne Johnlin, City of Seattle, but in this case, speaking for myself and speaking from an airport shuttle. Thank you all for hanging in there. I've got a dozen written comments that I'm sure you'll find fascinating, but I'd like to highlight just a few major issues here. To keep making progress towards our legislated target, we just need to find the most sensible ways to get there. For CMU wall insulation, if you look at the little map I sketched in my comment, you'll see that we're the only place north of Phoenix and a little strip of coastal California that allows this wasteful practice that loses 3 times the heat of other mass wall types and 5 times the heat of frame walls. So in my written comment, you'll see a few sketches also of available design solutions that are used everywhere else in the northern 3/4 of the country. That was a mistake when it went into our code decades ago, and it's become more egregiously bad as the performance of every other wall type has increased over the years. CMU is a great product with widespread use all around the country where it's insulated just like every other mass wall. Separately, I'm sure you heard a lot already about 267 and 270, the high performance replacement equipment for heating and water heating. Switching to heat pumps is how we get significant reductions in both energy use and emissions. We did exempt several building types due to their special funding problems, plus buildings that need expensive electric upgrades. And note that we let buildings keep 2/3 of their gas heating capacity with the heat pumps filling that remaining third. Since we have lots of days that just need a little heating, that 1/3 handles a very large percentage of the annual heating load. And beyond that, most mechanical systems are way oversized to start with, so it might mean that replacing your 1/3 of gas capacity with heat pump covers nearly all your annual needs. The most economical time to move to new technology is at the time you're going to replace the old equipment anyway. You've already got a contractor on site, so if we have to make it this progress, this is the time to do it. Closely related to that is 209, the replacing rooftop units with heat pumps. This should be a no-brainer. And a recent California study showed that the installed cost is only a few percentage points higher than conventional units. Even though heat pumps look to me like the most economical solution, that proposal also allows furnace type RTUs with more efficient controls. So just to wrap up, having spent 3 code cycles on the council myself, I have a pretty good idea what you're up against here. Thank you all. When the legislature originally wrote our marching orders, I doubt they ever thought it would be easy or popular, but here's a set of proposals for moving forward towards our mandated goal that's the result of years of haggling and refinement on the tag. And I challenge any of the opponents to this to show us a smarter or more economical path. If you do, we'll jump on it. But we've pared this down to the very best that anybody brought to the table. So thank you all very much.
All right. Is there anybody else in person or online who'd like to give testimony? If in person, just go ahead and approach the bench up there. And if online, please use the raise hand function. And Dwayne, I see your hand is down now. Never mind. All right. Making a last call for hands online to deliver testimony. All right. This hearing is scheduled till 5 p.m. today. In the time that we don't have testimony actively happening, we will pause the recording and monitor for folks who wish to deliver testimony.
Glad to meet you.
The recording running now. Okay. All right. So when you're ready, I will start the timer.
Okay.
Okay, when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Linda Bassett. I'm a resident of Spokane County. And to begin with, I'd just like to remind you of a little fable. I used to be a kindergarten teacher, so I kind of go with those things. It's called The Sky is Falling, if you remember. It's a classic fable. It's where Chicken Little believes the sky is falling after an acorn hits her head. She recruits friends like Ducky Lucky and Turkey Lurkey to warn the king, but they are led into a trap by the sly Foxy Loxy. I bring this story to your attention because the 2 morals of the story apply to the reason for this committee and rule changes. The first moral is do not jump to conclusions. Or scientifically stated, correlation does not imply causation. It's evident here today in that CO2 caused climate change is a correlation, not a fact.
But yet, it is the reason why everyone is running around trying to mandate the removal of gas appliances and increase the levels of insulation in homes. The second moral is that panic or unfounded fear is dangerous. The fear of CO2 causing climate change and the actions to prevent it are unfounded. This is causing a dangerous waste of money and resources. It is also taking attention away from the real cause of catastrophic storms, floods, fires, and drought, which I'll explain briefly at the end. Since the late 1990s, and even earlier, non-elected world groups such as the UN and the WEF, World Economic Forum, have screamed that the climate is changing because of rising CO2. They've recruited their billionaire friends like Bill Gates, who has no science degree, and politicians like Al Gore, who has no science degree, to run around alarming everyone that the climate is changing and convincing others that through their control of the media, academic, and political connections, that it's true. By creating enough panic, they have convinced nations to race to solar power, a type of energy that creates huge CO2 emissions. But shh, don't mention that. All the bricklayers, air conditioning workers, gas appliance companies, and builders will suffer greatly from these changes. Homeowners will suffer costs to make unnecessary changes in how they heat and cool their homes. The only ones to prosper will be the foxes, the villainous billionaires, who are pushing this cause as they move their investments into the right industries. They will get richer while the middle class suffers. The same kind of manufacturer alarmism just happened to us during COVID. Last week, Fauci, the I am science guru, was in front of Congress pleading the fifth to questions about his duplicity in leading the public to wear masks, stand 6 feet apart, stay home, and take a life-threatening jab. Not unlike what we are being forced to do in the name of CO2 reduction. Do not use gas appliances or drive your car or use your air conditioner or live in a single-family home or until we can't do anything but stay home COVID-like. Meanwhile, every day we see planes plowing the skies with rows and rows of white spray that spread out and form clouds in what was predicted to be a sunny day. We are told that it's just normal condensation. That is not true. This relentless world spraying of the skies is the cause of catastrophic weather, which they then blame on climate change, or CO2. These clouds are full of aluminum, barium, and strontium, desiccants and highly flammable. They create fast-moving, hotter than normal fires, just like we experienced here in Spokane. Additionally, they create an ionized atmosphere that can be controlled by EMFs. While I do not have enough time here to explain, I urge the public to look into this. Our lives truly depend on knowing this, because if the main pillar of the system is a lie, which CO2 caused climate change is, then not surprisingly, the fundamental threat to it is telling the truth. The truth is CO2 is not causing the weather we experience. It is the spraying of the skies in conjunction with EMFs. I have sources to show this in which I've presented to the committee. One is the Air Force owning the weather by 2025, and the other is fires as a weapon of war by NASA, both of which has been implemented. The first one I know for sure and I think the second one too in Vietnam. Thank you. Okay.
Before we pause recording, is there anybody else online who wishes to give testimony? Please use the raise hand function.
Is that all the testimony you've received today?
We've only got slugs of it.
Okay, I wasn't able to listen. I listened to yesterday's. And I'm with the builders.
All right, we've got a couple minutes left here. Make a final call for folks who are online. If you want to deliver a last bit of testimony, please use the raise hand feature. We will close this proceeding for just minutes. Alrighty. This hearing is being held to consider testimony on the currently filed proposals for WAC 5111C, the 2024 Washington State Energy Code commercial provisions, and WAC 5111R, the 2024 Washington State Energy Code residential provisions. All testimony presented at this hearing, along with all written comments received today, will be part of the official hearing record for the rulemaking. A final decision on adopting this rule proposal will be made on September 25th, 2026. On behalf of the SBCC, thank you for participating in this hearing. It is now stands adjourned at 5 p.m.